You're listening to a very special episode of the XWF Podcast with your host, Chris Page, joined by Vinnie Lane and Theo Pryce, with special guests Groucho of UGWC, Denzel Porter of the E-Wrestling News Network, Vhodka Black and Vincent Black from Fight NYC, Will from OCW, and Shep from Splat Media. The action starts right now.
Special, and I call all episodes of the XWF Podcast special. I'm starting to realize that when I hear them back, but this episode is super special because I think for the first time in the 25, 30 episodes that we've done, we're doing a cross-promotional podcast with several different feds. This is the brainchild of our very own Theo Pryce. And Theo, I'm going to go ahead and bring you in. Chat me up. Talk to me about this episode and what we've got going on, because this is special.
Yeah, it is. It's really special, and it's very unique. It is, I think, another step towards the evolution of the XWF. For those who have been around for a long time and have gone through the last two owners, you know what the Fed used to be, you know what the Fed is now, and kind of where we're trying to go. And one of the things we're trying to do is to get out there more, to be part of the XWF and eFed community. Things like Twitter are really big these days. There are Discord servers in the hundreds, it seems. And so what we want to do is get our name out there, work with other feds, work with other community members who maybe aren't associated with a Fed, but are there to spread information about e-fedding and the sport that we all seem to really enjoy. And so this Fed, we have this podcast, we have three different Feds on. We have OCW, which we actually have a few members of our roster that are also there. We have Fight NYC, which I know we've had some members there as well. And then UGWC, I'm pretty sure I said that one right, as well as Denzel Porter, who is going to tell you all about what he does, and I'm really excited to hear about that. And then we are Splat, which is kind of like this multimedia empire, for lack of a better word, and it'll be exciting to hear what they kind of do. So rather than have me talk a lot, I want to hear more about these different feds and these different community members and what they, what their agenda is and their history and what they want to accomplish going forward and stuff like that. So with that, I will try my best to not say anything again unless specifically asked.
Well, you'll definitely be specifically asked first and foremost. This is some groundbreaking shit for sure. The first person we're going to bring in and talk to is Denzel Porter. Denzel, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, it's this is a very interesting day in the world of e-fedding when you can sit down and chit chat with 3 or 4 different feds, and what you do is something that's a little bit more unique. You represent the EW News Network, which I'm assuming stands for eFed Wrestling News. Is that correct or incorrect?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Oh my God, don't call me sir. I know I'm old, brother, but he just made me feel like I'm goddamn Saint Nick. eFed Wrestling News Network. Chat me up, man. Talk to me about this. My understanding is you kind of report on the goings on within the eFed network.
Yeah. The idea was when I came up with the eFed network, I love what was going on with Twitter, but I felt like there was another element missing that could take the eFed experience to a whole nother level and bring the eFed community together more. So I decided to, be Denzel and go around to different promotions and trying to advertise for them, see what they got going on, boost stories, and, let other people know about what this eFed has going on and what that eFed has going on, just so everybody we can all know what's going on within the community.
Well, how long have you been doing this?
When I first started, I think I started back in June. I was on Twitter for a while I came back into EFED about the beginning of 2021, around January. Just got back in the game. I was recently competing at IAW for a while before I got on Twitter, and then I picked up on the news thing. And I was like, kind of like this, I see other people were enjoying it. Then I thought maybe, let's add some more. I'll do some rankings, try to add that to it. Try to give people they props for what they do.
How many feds do you think you'd say you cover right now?
Right now, man, I try to cover just about enough. I know when I do my list, I think I've done up to 25. I've just gone around, checked them out. I know I do a lot with Fight. I do a lot with Action Wrestling. I do a lot with Project Honor. I work around with IAW a little bit. I recently did a few things with Zion Wrestling. They're angle fed. I just try to reach out. There's some others I work with, but those are the main ones I do on a regular basis.
Now, when you're shifting through all these feds, like I'm sure you're catching up on the TV stories and what have you. What's your favorite kind of stuff to cover? And is it just you who's doing this, or do you have a team that works with you? And if so, how many of you guys are kind of dibbling and dabbling in all the feds to get this news website, keeping it flowing basically?
Well, yeah, when I first started, it was just me. Then some people like Tara Thamus, she reached out to me and wanted to get involved with it. So I gave her a little spot on our website on the forum, and she's got a show where she does her things in little segment, asking different handlers how they come up with their RPs and stuff like that. Then I recently just added Lexi on with us. Sit down with Lexi. She covers Five Borough Wrestling. That's where she's from, and she covers that one to get them some more exposure. And then we had Bips Say Less. He came on. He wanted to add something to the show, so we gave him the second take, where he does some pay-per-view reviews and show reviews on feds, let them know how their match result was. He doesn't try to be too harsh, but Bill's a little bit more honest than I am. I try to keep it more in a fun thing.
You got to keep it interesting, right?
Yeah, I got to keep it interesting. And as far as stories goes, I see a lot of different e-feds doing stuff. I really, I try not to be biased, but I gotta say, I gotta really love what Fight's doing. I really think that's unique, what they got going on. I've never seen that. I'm also gonna shout out to Project Honor. They had a awesome little storyline with Red and Jason Long and Savannah Sunshine. Check that out on Project Honor. That was real cool. I think they have a match coming up between Red and Savannah Sunshine about the situation, so y'all can check that out. But yeah,
Project Honor sounds familiar, Theo. Where have I heard that before? Is that is Raven and Sean Orstein been over there?
I'm pretty sure they have, and I think Betsy was as well for a little bit. I don't think any of them are now. And I have no idea why, but yeah, they definitely were at one point.
I think that's where that one's familiar to me. So Denzel, when you're kind of free floating around looking for the material for your site, what kind of stuff grabs your attention? Like, what kind of stuff do you want to report
on? I try to report on everything. I don't try to have like a certain agenda. If I just see something come across the timeline or EFIT I've never done business with, I go in and check them out and pop off a story I think that's real interesting. I mean, just anything, different angles I've never seen before. Or if I just feel like stories are flowing, like I go back and just read what happened the weeks prior to what I'm reading before then. Make sure I get the whole flow of the story to make sure I understand what's going on and stuff like that. And I just try to advertise for all. I don't really go in looking for a story, just whatever grabs my attention. And either way, I'm still try to hype the fed up.
Theo, real quick, how did you and Denzel cross paths?
Denzel had messaged me, I think kind of out of the blue a few weeks back and was looking for, and I'm actually just going through my Twitter DMs to see exactly what it was. He was doing a rising star list, and this was back in early August, so about a month ago, and he was just looking for some names from XWF, and we kind of chatted back and forth about, what he considers rising star, right? Because to me, a rising star is somebody who's good, but maybe hasn't reached the top of the mountain yet. Um, Somebody else might have a different interpretation of that. So we kind of went back and forth, discussed that a little bit, and then I got him some names. And then ever since then, we've just kind of chatted back and forth every so often about different things. And when the idea for this podcast came about, he was somebody that I wanted to speak to, A, because I wanted to know more about him, but B, because what he does is so different from everyone else that I felt like it would really be great for the community to hear about it and to hear from him and what he does and how it, well, like he said, like he doesn't have an agenda. He's just going out there trying to promote the hobby. And I think that's amazing. And so when we were able to put this on, and I was super excited when he said, he'd be happy to join. So that's kind of how that happened. We got to rapping, and that's how it happened.
I hear you. Denzel, where can they catch, or where can our listeners, where can they catch your recaps and all your news and information?
All the news information can be reached at thee-network.freeforms.net. You'll catch all my rankings, predictions I do, all the lists everybody be asking me to do, even the fun ones. Everything's on there. Even the side shows I have with everybody else, like Atara and Brian Buzzworthy. Oh, and we also have the eWrestlingTees.com on there as well, helping promoting that.
I love Samatara. When you shared the link with me, what was it? It was over the weekend or late last week was when I was able to do some reading up on your site. And if you guys get a chance to check it out, like there's a lot going on there. Theo, do you have any questions for Denzel?
What is your plan for kind of moving forward? What kind of things are you hoping to accomplish in the future?
Right now, the only plans I have is just to grow it a little bit more. I know there's a lot more e-feds out there that don't get a lot of coverage from me, and I try not to be like that. So try to recruit some more people to help. The more people that join on, the more e-feds they get covered, the more the community gets brought more together and all that. And I'm also trying to work on a little side project doing like a supercard show with somebody. Been reaching out to a couple e-feds about to see if we can put something together.
Who would you be? See, you jump into that, and now my head goes into a whole other direction. What kind of who would you be looking for to do some kind of super show or some kind of super card? What kind of feds have you been reaching out to?
It'll probably be mostly the competitive feds, the RP feds. Mostly be like most of the ones I work closely with. Definitely want to work with y'all and try to bring Fight in and some other ones. I want to make sure everybody is cool with it because I know sometimes in the EFED community there's a little division, but I try to bring it together, and I want to make sure I don't step on nobody's toes when I try to do it.
See, I've learned over, and this is really going to tell my age. I got into this back when email feds were a thing. If that tells you anything. So like 96, 97. And I have learned over my years, there's always going to be the super competitive folks. And there's always going to be the guys that were competitive at one point in time, but now just don't really give a fuck. They just really care about the story and the overall product.
Yeah.
Putting on a super show, you're going to have that that possibility of egos getting in the way. But maybe, just maybe, people will put it aside for a bigger thing. if you get that off the ground, definitely hit up Theo because I'm sure the XWF would be more than happy to participate.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
I definitely want to do some more work with y'all. I'm gonna start reaching out to y'all more. I love some of y'all competitors. Them no good bastards, Dolly. Y'all got
Oh, you gotta love the bastards, man.
y'all had a lot of good talent in the mix.
There's a lot happening there. There's also, the what I think is interesting is what you're doing specifically is kind of with all the feds that you're going to report on and that you're doing stuff with, like you're getting to cherry pick and look at probably some of the best writers that a lot of people may not know exist. So that being said, like give me some of your top names right now that that you've seen in other feds that you're like, God damn, this guy's got something.
I would definitely speak on like IAW. They don't really have a lot of handlers. They go on Twitter. I think they just have a page. There's some guys in there that I think if they branched out, they'd be good at. Like there's like their world champion Jakey Dangerously. He's held the title for 7 months, and I see why. The man can write. You go to IAW on their boards and just check out his work. He's very, very good. Then there's another guy, Russell Wayne. He's a great storyteller. I like his work as well. Who else have I seen? Action Wrestling. I really like the work of Corey Black. He's a very good storyteller and knows how to work that shoot in there as well. Fight has a lot of great storytellers and great shoot. I mean, their roster, I'm not trying to over hype them, but their roster stacked from, they got Sean Warston, they got Brandon Moore. I've seen a couple other of them. They just got Betsy. That's another fantastic writer. Who else is on their roster? I remember. Oh, they got my boy J-Mont. Can't forget the Montari brothers, both Piedmont and J-Mont. They do great work as well. Project Honor, Jason Long, Elena, Velcry, they got some good writers there. Savannah Sunshine. There's a lot of good RP writers out there. Like I said, Dolly Waters, James Raven, of course, the GOAT. And them No Good Bastards, I seen their working during the mix time. They're very good. Miss Fury, I think she's with y'all as well.
Mm-hmm. There's a plethora of people out there, and a lot happening within the world of e-fetting, and it's funny that you mention obviously we're talking about Fight NYC. They're also on this call. Let me go ahead and bring them in because you say you're not trying to toot the horn of that fed, but they have a lot going on. They're part of the podcast. Miss Vhodka Black, Mr. Xavier Black, welcome into the show. They're representing Fight NYC. How are you guys doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Trying to live the dream as best I can. It's overly hot down here in Florida. Can't speak for where everyone else is. Oh, it's okay. So you understand heat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in New Jersey, and I'm just glad it's dry at this point.
Well, yeah, I think, isn't Vinnie in Jersey, Theo?
Yeah, he's up in northern Jersey.
What part, you know? We don't say that,
in-
Amanda. Don't do that.
I'm sorry, I'm in trouble already.
Is it like Fairfield or Plainfield?
Bro, I'm right by there.
Oh, really?
Isn't that where Ed Gein was from?
I don't know. You would know better than anybody.
I'm sorry, I took the wrong place.
I mean, if you see an ugly guy with like a receding hairline and like Ringo Starr glasses, it's probably Vinnie Lane.
Okay.
Oh, sweet.
All right.
Sounds
If you had said
about
beard,
right.
I thought you were going to be describing me for a second there.
I don't know if Vinnie can grow facial hair. I don't know if that's in his genetics.
I don't know that I've seen him with it. Yeah.
I can't either.
No, yes, you can. Don't stop. We know you can. We've seen photos.
Before we get into Fight NYC, I know you guys were listening in to the Denzel spot, and while he's still on the call, do you guys have any questions for him on what he does with the EW network?
I just want to say that we were talking on chat while he was talking, and all we can say is that we love Denzel so much.
So much.
Because He is so pure, and he just has a love for this game, and he doesn't pick favorites, and he just tries to add to everybody's. And as people who genuinely love this game, it's so nice to see somebody who doesn't have a stake in it. They just want to help out. It's not about making themselves better or more known. He just genuinely loves this game and loves to help promote it. And I will physically fight someone for you, Denzel, just to let you know. I will physically altercate with somebody for you.
And I'll kill them.
I appreciate it.
You're a good man, Denzel.
I love how you just used the word "I will physically altercate with someone." It just sounds so dirty. But
I'm very
so
fancy
good.
that way.
He's very dirty too.
Yeah, that as well.
He hasn't showered in days.
Well, I'm not going to speak for that. Jersey folks do things a little differently than we do in the South.
Dirty Jersey.
Chat me up. Talk to me about Fight NYC. Let's get a little bit of the history on your Fed, and kind of what you got going on right now.
So basically, Fight came out from our other Fed, OPW, which sadly is disbanded. There were some issues that were going on there, and we said, hey, let's kind of do our own thing. Our owner, he's got some stuff going on, and he didn't really have the time to devote to it right now anymore. And also, so Vin and I, we have a third partner. His name is Rich. He is from the UK. Man. He's a beautiful man. He's sleeping right now. He's letting us do this against his best instincts.
Because he has to get his beauty sleep, even though he's the most handsome man anybody's ever seen.
That's pretty much true, yes.
I thought you were going to say old. I was about to say, what the fuck does that sound like, guys?
No, he's not old.
No,
In fact,
beautiful.
He's internally young. Like, he is just the most... He is like the Mona Lisa of men. That's the best way I can put it, really.
So really, this is all just a ruse. We created Fight just as a ruse so that we could go into business with him because we're both deeply in love with him. So
deeply.
No, but
yeah.
Seriously, so we kind of created Fight just on, this is something that we've wanted to do for a long time. I've been out of the game for like 20 years until they drug me back in, and we said, we've kind of done it all. We've won matches, we've had belts, we've done everything else. What is there left to do in this game? We said, all right, well, let's try to run a Fed. And now we're trying to run a Fed and hopefully are moderately successful at it.
It certainly sounds like it based off of, some of the stuff that we heard from Denzel and some of the names that you've got involved in your mix now. When you can get some guys like Raven and Betsy and Warstein and I know that you've got homegrown talent there as well. And I'm using those three names specifically because I go back with those guys and girls 15 years. We've all ran in the same circle. How long has Fight been around?
Oh, it's only about 8-10 weeks now.
Yes, but but most of our roster we have known since the email Fed days since 2000. Yes. So Vin and I have known each other since 2000.
So yeah, we're all showing our age right now. if that's the case.
In my defense, I was 12 when I started, so I'm still very young.
Yeah, we had no idea she was 12 back then. I would have never let her read my role plays back then if I knew how young she was.
What do we got going on over in Fight right now? What's the nitty gritty?
So right now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely, go ahead.
I'm an interrupter too, Amanda, just so you know. Okay. Right now, we're gearing up for our end of the season pay-per-view because we run by season. And it's called Ascension. And basically, it's an all-out war between the stables that we have. At the end of this pay-per-view, one team will be left standing. Now, should that team decide to give their leader a title shot, they'll do that because there's a prize money which will afford a person to get a title shot. But if they decide that they want to split that money or they don't want to share that money, well, then maybe they won't ascend. Maybe they'll descend instead. So it's really, with us, it's more about building onto everything that goes on. Like, we're very hands-on storytellers. We like working with people. We don't like leaving people to their own devices too much. Like, we want you to be a part of your story, but we also try to help guide them as much as possible without taking the reins. because we've all been in that fed that the owner was like, no, you're going to do this. And, that's not fun for anybody. We suggest, we never demand. And with Ascension, it's literally going to be, the teams deciding on an individual basis without their leader knowing what's going to happen at the end. So at the end of it, you could literally have a team that all want different things. And then next season, that team has to deal with the repercussions of that.
Let me ask you this, because one thing that you said, my mind went to immediately. And that's you do things in seasons. Break that down a little bit for me. What does that mean?
Okay, so we have, 10 shows, 2 pay-per-views.
Yes.
So the 2 pay-per-views are broken down in 2-week time periods. So you have 2 weeks to role play, and then every other one is a weekly show. Venoms are a weekly show. So basically, your storylines are going to run from, the first of the season to the end of the season. And then once that season's over, those storylines will hopefully come to a close, and you'll begin a new chapter. Because it's all about moving things forward. We've all been in those feds that are just perpetually the same story over and over and over again. So if you have a deadline and a time, you can break things down much easier. And this was Rich's idea, because as handsome as he is, he's also very smart. And I loved it because a lot of the time people just continue these stories, and that's all well and good. I mean, I don't begrudge anybody. Like Denzel, I'm a lover of the game. When you said like the people who aren't competitive anymore, they don't give a crap, they just want to write and tell stories, that's me. I barely put shoots in my role plays anymore, honestly. Think about it. Like, you're in the middle of a family, emergency, and you're just going to stop and monologue. It just doesn't make sense to me. But with seasons, it just seems like, okay, you have 12 weeks to tell this story. Hit the high notes, get in, get out, move on to the next thing.
With you guys being such a fresh fed, well, I'm not going to say the word fresh because that's not the best word to use, because you talked about how you came together off of a fed that closed. With it being a newer fed, where do you see yourself going, and how many people do you have on your roster right now?
Oh my God, how many people do we have? Like,
oh my God, I wasn't prepared for that
person?
question.
I'm just
I
here
don't
because
count.
I feel bad.
I'm not the guy who counts.
Just ballpark it.
40, maybe 30,
yeah,
40,
maybe
somewhere in there.
We started out with around 40, and we've lost a couple here and there, but we also gained a couple.
Yeah,
so
probably about 40.
About 40, maybe.
Yeah.
Where do you envision the Fed going? The XWF has been around, literally on and off for 22 years. Is that obviously that's something you guys are shooting for? You want longevity.
Oh, absolutely.
What's your next step? Where do you see Fight going? Within your next couple of seasons, and who do you see maybe as some breakout stars?
Well, one thing that's important to me is I always want to leave people better than when we found them. Absolutely. So if somebody comes and joins Fight, something that's important to me is, you could be the best. I think everybody always has more room for improvement. I know I do. So I always want to help people and guide them and just shoot the shit and talk about ideas and how can we do this better? Or, where are there areas that I could be doing better as, staffing a Fed, and you could be doing better in your writing if there's anywhere I could see. So that's important to me to grow that. And I really want it to be a place where I can just hang out with my friends, because that's my number one goal, is I don't really give a shit about the rest of it. I just want to hang out with people that I like and write stories with people that I like and enjoy myself. So I want it to be around for that. I want it to be a home where people can come to if they want that. If you're chill and you want to just write and have fun, then let's do it. And I don't know where it's going to take us. Hopefully not down in flames. We'll see. We'll see. Hopefully if I don't, have my hands on it too much, it'll be okay. I'll let the smart ones run it. But what about you then?
I would say the one thing I really want out of Fight is for it just to be a positive experience for people. I've been in feds where it's just been a hostile environment. People don't get along. And this is a game, and it's supposed to be fun. It's a creative outlet for a lot of us. We're all adults at this point. This isn't really, a kid's game anymore, because pretty much everybody that's been in this game has been in it for a while. and we all have our own personal lives. We all got things going on, and I don't ever want to be the type of place that creates drama. I want to be a place where you can go and you can relieve the stress of your day by riding with your friends or joking around in a chat or stupid Twitter wars, which, you know, Twitter is amazing for this game now, but, you know, like I just want to be positive. Now, we had somebody on our staff on our roster who won a title in another federation. And the first thing we all did was congratulate them publicly, because we're in love with this game. We like to see people in this game do well, whether they do it for us or for any other fed they're in. We want to support that, and that's something that I think is missing from this game in a lot of ways. Is that there's this competitive nature between feds where it doesn't have to be that way.
Well, I think one of the big things about this podcast is it's kind of bridging the gap between the feds and the multimedia stuff that's out there. We'll have Splat on in just a second to kind of go more into detail on that piece of it as well. But I used to tell people, and I still do, you know, on the XWF podcast all the time, like we are all a bunch of nerds who like to sit down and write and tell stories.
Yep,
that's what we're doing. This is a part of it. And I going back to Vhodka, going back to something you said just a second ago, I'm in the same boat that you are. I'm in the XWF now to have a good time, which is probably was supposed to have been a 2-shot deal back 2 years ago, has turned into 2.5 years, just by having a good time with the people that I'm working with. And I say that to say we all are doing the same thing in our own ways, right? So to see the gap kind of be bridged a little bit, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, and you get these different feds. You know, back in my day growing up and in the E-Fed games, you didn't have cross-promotional matches because everybody would pitch a fit about, oh, my guy should have went over, or my guy should have went over. It's never been about what's best for the product. What are we trying to tell here? What's the stories that we're trying to get across? Now more than ever, with podcasts like this and being able to talk to other feds and be able to talk to other fed heads, I think now we're reaching a point to where this is very much possible for there to be an inter-fed show where some incredible shit could happen.
Agreed.
That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that where the game is going and how it's advancing, and you know, knowing that there are super quality writers out there all over the place. There's a lot of dream matches out there that could finally happen at some point. Theo, let me come over to you real quick. Do you have anything for Fight?
You know, I don't know about questions, but when they said they've only been around 8-10 weeks or something, that surprised me, because there's been a lot of really big names that have been in that Fed, and that's not something that you see from something that's brand new. But I've heard, you know, many positive things about the things that they do, and in just talking to them in these few minutes, I mean, it's very clear that their goal is to provide a place for people to go to write, to not have to be stressed out, to not have to deal with drama, because I think we all know that there is just an unimaginable amount of drama with e-fetting for some reason. I don't understand it. It drives me insane.
I've never understood it.
I try and avoid it, but it's always there. It's like a cloud hanging over e-fetting for some reason. You know, but it's very clear that what they're doing is providing a place for people to just go and write and have fun and not deal with bullshit, and, you know, not have to write a ton, which I think seems to be kind of the way e-feds are going these days. You know, I think it's very rare that you see feds that require more than one, maybe 2 role plays per show.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That's one of the things that's unique about the XWF, is that we have 2 different shows that have multiple RP requirements for them. But I don't want to talk about us, because people listening to our podcast know all about us. But yeah, I mean, I guess what I would want to know about Fight, or know from them, is in their best case scenario, how do they think they could take part in a inter-fed or cross-promotional fed type of event, be it a pay-per-view or like a weekly show, how would you imagine something like that happening? How would you book matches, or how would judging go, stuff like that? Because I feel like judging is always the one thing that kind of stands in the way is Fight may judge role plays very different from XWF, and how do you kind of bridge that gap, so to speak?
Well, I mean, for me, it really depends upon the people who are running it. So if you had the head or at least one staff member from every fed, they would all have to agree on a criteria for judging. That was something that we had to do at least 3 times in the fight because we wanted to be fair to everyone who was writing. And a lot of times it would come out where we would feel better about a role play, but the numbers didn't match up, or we'd feel a certain way about this one role play, but we weren't sure. And it became more confusing the simpler we tried to make it. So with an federation show, I feel like staff would have to nail down the criteria right away. A big thing with us is match relevance. I try to tell people you should be, every 20 lines, you should be mentioning something in this role play that has to do with your match. If it's personal, you should work it in as best you can. And I've had people point out that I don't do that, but I don't care about winning. So, that's fine. I don't care. But I feel like as long as everybody who was involved in that show wanted to make it a success and didn't just care about their own brand, that wouldn't be an issue. We have somebody, Joe Montori. What it is, right? Which one he joined?
Yes, that's that thing that's going around on Twitter today. Hold on, and I will tell you what it is. Oh my God, I've got to go through all the tweets now. But there's that tournament that's going on. It's like the indie wrestling tournament or whatever. And we've actually got 2. We've got Joe Montori, who's going to do it. And we also have our Empire champion, Dickie Watson, who's also joining as a part of that.
Awesome.
So this is the Independent Wrestling Syndicate tournament that's going on.
Okay. So we have 2 people in that are going to go, and they're going to put their best foot forward to represent Fight and also themselves. I think Erin's going to represent her own fed. That's how I feel, but that's fine.
Yes, Erin, Dickie Watson, PWE.
Yeah, I'm fine about that. Erin's good people. But Joe Montori, which, by the way, when I was coming up, Joe was the man. He was the guy. Every fed I went into, he was top of the line. Nobody really stepped up to him, and I made it my mission to take him on. And this dude beat me 17 times in a row, but I kept going back at him. And to this day, me and him are very close. I tease him a lot because he drives a Maserati, and we call it a Mouserati. Like a mouse rat. Anyway, it's a stupid joke. Yeah, it's a stupid joke. But anyway, this is how long we've been going back and forth. And he was ready to quit this game, and then, he got reignited into it. He found his love for it again, and watching him get back to square one and become the Joe that I remember has been an amazing trip. I'm every time I read one of his role plays, I'm like a little kid at Christmas opening a present. I love reading them. He's funny. He sticks to the match relevance so well. I could probably boast about everybody on our roster, to be honest, though. Brandon Moore, everybody is just doing such a phenomenal job. I wish they could all win.
That's my problem. I want everybody to win and just have a good time.
Yeah, I just want everyone to be happy.
There's always got to be a winner. There's always got to be a loser.
I will book myself to lose every match in that case.
Bro, one of my characters...
I'm kind of the same way. I am legitimately kind of the same way.
We have a title called the Queen's title because nobody likes Queens, New York. And
why would they?
It's actually the loser's title. And the person who loses the most matches gets the title, and now they don't get to get rid of it until they lose it. I currently have that title because I wanted to demonstrate that it's not a punishment, it's a gimmick. It's something to work with. My hope is that somebody will want to work with me to try and lose as much as possible to get that title off me, because I think that would be just brilliant. So hint, hint, people.
Is it me? Are you talking about me?
No, I'm not talking about you.
Okay.
Although, actually, you would be prime for that.
I would. I'm very
Yeah.
good at losing. I'm the best loser you've ever met.
No, I'm far better at it than you are.
All right,
Denzel.
that's a challenge. Denzel, you got it. You got the scoop right now. We're going head to head for who's the best loser.
I'm actually
heard
going to
it here
come over
first.
to you, Denzel. Do you have some questions for Fight?
Let me think. I don't want to try to spoil anything they got going on ahead. I'll just ask them what show or pay-per-view has been your favorite so far between Toxic Tag and Blood Money?
Blood Money, definitely.
Blood Money. Absolutely, Blood Money.
And then I think Ascension is going to be really cool. We've got something special planned for that, so I think that one's going to be up there too.
Okay.
But Blood Money put us on the map. We weren't ready for that at all. People were retweeting it and just passing it around. That completely blew us away. We really weren't prepared for that, and it was a good thing.
Yeah, it was because like I said, when I first read Blood Money, I was just, like you said, blown away. I put together, I never seen that type of thing going on, so that was new to me to see.
And that one was crazy. We wrote that in one day, and I think at 3:00 I was having a meltdown. I'm like, what did we do? We made up a concept that was too hard. I don't know how we're going to write this. But it worked out.
It, though.
It was okay.
I think we nailed it. I mean, saying that from our point of view, of course, we did it. So when I say we nailed it, it's, because I want to say we nailed it. But I hope we nailed it.
Where can we find Fight here on the infamous internet?
Well, you can find us at www.fight-now.com. And we also have a Twitter, which is Fight NYC, and I believe it's _ after that. Or if not, you can look up Xavier or X Once X Takes on Twitter or Vhodka Black, and you can find us through there as well.
That was the most professional I've ever heard you sound.
I can put on my customer service voice sometimes.
Oh my God.
You totally nailed it.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
It was great.
You want me to plug anybody else? I'll plug everybody. I'm good at plugging.
Is there anything that you guys that we want to touch on? Do we get everything, all the material that we needed to get out for Fight and for you, Denzel?
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I think I spoke on enough stuff. Just want to shout out OCW. I forgot to mention them when I was talking about some feds. So, shout out to them as well. But I think that's about all from my end.
Gotta ask you, where are you from?
I'm down here in Georgia.
Okay, I'm from
makes
Alabama.
sense.
I'm from Alabama originally. Now I'm in Florida. So I heard the accent. I was like, that's a Southern motherfucker if I've ever heard one. Yeah, no, I think that'll wrap it up then, Theo. So, Theo and Vinny, this will take us kind of over to the land of GCW. It's just a fed that I'm vaguely familiar of their presence. I know that we've had some talent kind of cross-brand a little bit and role-play in both feds. Before we bring in Grouch, let's talk about what you guys know about GCW. Vinny, let me start with you first because I know you spent some time there.
Yeah, I've been a part of their fed more off and on, but since about 2018, I think it was early 2018 when I joined it. Familiar with them enough to know that they're called the UGWC. Don't know who GCW is, but that's fine.
Well, let's sidebar that. I'm going off of the notes that I was given. So I was given inaccurate information from your right hand. So
can I verify that?
Take that up.
Where are the receipts? I want to see the receipts.
Yeah, we're gonna need to see the PM.
Are you sure you're not thinking of OCW? Or
Oh,
OWC
no. I know exactly what I'm talking about, and so will you in just a second.
Here we go. UGCW info, and yeah, there we go. See, UGCW is what I have twice.
Oh,
which may or may not be right. The UGWC.
Let's get them right.
United Global Wrestling Coalition. That's what.
So, do we just want to start over completely?
No. This is keeping all the same.
Half the fun is fucking up, and what you don't realize, when Gator is recording, a shout out to Gates who's stepping in and recording this piece of the show. There's no editing. It all stays in.
We're the blooper reel. That's nice.
Right. So going back to it, the UGWC.
Correct.
Thank you, Theo Pryce. Chat me up. So 2018 is when you start, and take me from there.
Yeah, basically, and this goes back to I had kind of branched out in 2017, tried to make the Roxy Cotton character more than just a side character. Yes, more than that. Where she was kind of just, Vinnie Lane's girlfriend in XWF, and I wanted to kind of expand on it, but I didn't want to do it in the XWF because I own it, and I just didn't feel like that would be fair. So I also thought it would be a good opportunity to go out and see what other feds were out there, kind of make some friends, see if we could, kind of connect and things like that. And that's when I first met people who you guys are familiar with in XWF, Sarah Lachlan and Kenzie Gray. So we made our group with our friends, and the fourth one, Angelica, has never been in, unfortunately. And we made this cool kid stable, and we were in a fed that was called LAW, Ladies All-Star Wrestling, and it was a terrible fed. And it closed down, and as a lot of terrible feds do. And Sarah Lachlan had found UGWC in the meantime and was kind of selling us hard on it because she was like, oh, it's cool, it's a good bunch of guys. Their shows are always on time. They have a really neat system where they have the stipulation system and the global dollars that they pay out, et cetera, et cetera. And that all turned out to be true. So we joined up there and had a really, really good run. I mean, I left for a little while because I wanted to focus more on XWF stuff, and then recently kind of came back to it. But yeah, it's a really exactly everything is advertised. Lachlan told us it was, and it's turned out to be true. I don't think Theo really knows much about him at all. I don't think he's ever really interacted or done anything with them.
Yeah, I haven't. Most of what I know is just from conversation that I've had with you or following things on Twitter. So, no, I have not branched out into other feds as much as Lane has, or as much as a lot of people have. I mean, this day and age, a lot of people are in multiple feds, which is great, and that's a big part of why we're doing this podcast. I have not really used Twitter a ton until recently. So what I know is more of a passing thing. So I'm as excited to learn more about the Fed in this podcast than anything else, really.
Yeah. No, I mean they've been around forever, just kind of quietly, and it's kind of a parallel to the XWF because they weren't real big on social media or anything like that either. So it was just sort of they were there in their area, and we were there in them. So it was cool. It was cool to kind of interact and try to bring things together and share talent and stuff.
Well, I mean, let's bring in one of the men who make that happen over in UGWC. You may know him as Groucho. You may know him as Zane. You may know him as Ad or Adam, and chances are he will be called all of those names in the process of this show. Groucho, man, come on in, brother. Welcome to the podcast, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the invite. And if you call me all of those, that's fine. I mean, I've gotten used to answering to all of them, so it should be entertaining for at least somebody.
Well, that would be me.
Yeah, everything's entertaining to Chris Page.
If people hear me get confused, they're probably going to find it amusing too. So,
chat me up, man. When did UGWC? Give me some of the background. When did the Fed start? And
Sure.
And kind of the goings-ons.
We've been around since April of 2010. In storyline, the idea, it was a merger between a place called the Lock Wrestling Federation, which is the E-Fed that our main owners ran, the founders ran. And in storyline, we merged Lock with Global Impact Wrestling, which is where I came from when UGWC was founded. I came over with quite a few people, some who are still active, some who aren't, some who are intermittently active. And the story idea was that this group called the Covenant invaded Lock Wrestling and just raised so much havoc between the two companies that they had to merge into one to keep them going out of business. And that was with my original character, who's been retired for a few years now. His name is Dirge, and his cohort named Rainius, who's I would call intermittently active. He's in the Hall of Fame. Both Rainius and Dirge are in the Hall of Fame for UGWC. So in storyline, that kind of got the ball rolling back in April of 2010. And it's been going ever since. And this is actually the longest I've ever been in an E-Fed where it stayed active and interesting, and it has a pretty constant influx of talent, which is really nice. And I think probably the main reason we get this kind of influx of people is because we kind of have a different way of doing things. We're not a Fed where every decision down to who wins every single match on every single pay-per-view is decided by the people in charge, which would be our Fed head Steve, the gentleman that he founded Lock with, a man named Rob, who's from the UK. He's on break right now for personal reasons, family stuff mainly. And then the other couple guys in the in the management team are Brandon, or B. He's one of the legends of the company. He's got a Hall of Fame character named Jet Somers, and he's currently running a character named Montague Cervantes, who's a very unique and interesting character, one that I enjoy writing quite a bit. And the other one is a gentleman named Chad, who has a character in the Hall of Fame named Chaos, and one who is destined for the Hall of Fame named Vane, who is arguably our greatest world champion. And that's kind of, we're the guys that kind of keep the ball rolling, so to speak, and try to coordinate everything as much as possible, which, as you guys know, having run your own E-Feds and been involved in those, can be a challenging proposition at times. But when it all comes together, it's pretty rewarding, I think.
Oh, no doubt. When you're talking about, so let me backtrack for a second. So you started up in 2010. So has this been a nonstop thing for the last 12 years, or 11 years, going on 12 years, or were there breaks in between?
Not for the Fed, no. I mean, individual people in the Fed have taken time off. I have, and various other people have, but the Fed itself has rolled right along the entire time.
So that's rare. You don't get a whole lot of those anymore. Let me talk to you about the role playing structure there. What kind of limits do you have for your guys, and how do you go about? You were talking about how not every decision is determined by management. Talk me through that process. How does that play?
So we have one show a week, which is on Monday. All of our shows, including pay-per-views, are on Mondays. We don't juggle around the calendar, except for one time a year, which is I would say our biggest pay-per-view, which some of you guys have taken apart, and I'll get to that a little bit later. From week to week, we run one show, which is Synergy on Mondays. And Steve does most of the card layout for that, and we discuss the cards and the planning. And for non-title matches on Synergy, we decide who the winners are based on our judging of the role plays that come up and how well they fit in the storyline, things of that nature. Title matches are graded, or I should say scored. Graded is not a good word. Scored. So what we do with title matches is, for most of our titles except for one, and I'll circle back around to that, once the roleplay deadline has been reached, Steve will send out a message to everybody over the message board via private message that says, here's the match or matches that need to be scored this week. Please send us your score from 1 to 10. And then the scores get tallied, and the person with the highest score wins the match. And as you guys can probably imagine, that causes a fair bit of turnover in the championship scene. So it takes a lot for someone to hold a championship for more than, a couple months at a time, 2-3 months at a time. Sometimes it's a lot faster.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see that. We the thing about any eFeds is there's a lot of hot potato that goes around with championships for sure. Theo, let me come over to you. Based off of kind of what you've heard with the kind of overview that we've gotten, what kind of questions does that put in your head?
Several, actually. The first of which is, you mentioned a weekly show. So we used to have 2 weekly shows, and then we made it to bi-weekly shows because we just felt like weekly shows was so much for people to put together. But I'm curious, how many staff members do you have? Well, actually, we backtrack. How big is a typical card for one of your weekly shows? And then how many staff members do you have working on putting those shows together? Do roster members write matches? How does that whole process work for you guys?
Weekly, it kind of varies depending on what we're trying to accomplish from show to show. Usually, it's a minimum of, the average is 3 to 5 matches per show, depending on what we're trying to do and how many people are available. Because one thing we do is we give characters a week off every month, and they just have to, at the beginning of the month, they get a private message from Steve, and he says, here's how the month is laid out, what we're going to be doing this month. Here's the pay-per-view. Please pick a week you'd like to be off and send it to the management team, and we will work that into the schedule. And the purpose of that is to keep people from getting burned out. And that's a fairly new thing we've instituted, but I think it's worked really well so far. And the people that role play for us seem to like it. And I think that's the important thing, is it's been really well received so far.
I can say from a participant standpoint, Ed, one of the issues why I needed when I took a break from there was because, it was every single week, literally. So it's, every week it's like, okay. And you have kind of a small window too, honestly, because you guys, your deadline is Saturday night.
Yep.
And Sunday is all for people to grade. And then the show is Monday. And then the card, usually, if the card goes up, it's late Monday night or Tuesday.
Right.
So you're looking at, you have 4 or 5 days really to write something. And man, sometimes that's hard to keep up with. That's why I was like, one thing that you guys were good about was like every year you would double check and say, hey, are you on board for this year? And that one time I was just like, I don't know, man. Like I gotta stop writing. I actually got to a point where I was feeling bad because I was like, I'm spending a lot of time writing for a Fed that's not mine. I should work harder on my own.
That's fair. And we understand that.
I think.
I don't know if you meant. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna direct back to the rest of your questions that you were talking about, putting the shows together and the match writing and all that.
The weekly shows are done in a style which we call syncap, which are basically a synopsis of the match rather than a fully written match itself. And that makes the shows, I think, both easier to digest for the roster, and it's also easier on us and the staff so we don't get burned out as fast. Because anybody who's read a UGWC pay-per-view can tell how much time we put into every match and every part of the card to make sure it's the best show we can give everybody.
Pay-per-view shows are very big and very well done.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. And my fellow staff members will appreciate that too.
Something that I want to piggyback off of this, because just hearing what you just said, Groucho, about putting on the best possible show that you can, it takes me back to the WGWF, which that was my baby for about 12 years, give or take. And one of the things that I would instill to my match writers is you're only as good as your results.
Right.
If your results suck, the perception of your Fed is going to suck. And that's one thing, and I haven't, bear in mind, I haven't read a results show from UGWC, but I definitely will seek one out now. But the one thing I'll tell you with the XWF is the match writers that we have kind of share that same same focus of making sure that if the writer puts in the work, the role player puts in the work, that you're going to get a quality product look at and read. So it's really good to hear that coming from, and to know that mentality still exists.
Oh yeah, we're all old school e-fetters, for want of a better way of putting it. Most of us, I think, have been around the e-fed scene since at least the early 2000s. I started role playing in the late 90s. I'm an old man.
Brother, are you an email buddy?
I don't
We're
go
all old.
that far back. I started the first Fed I was ever in actually had its own board set up. It's somebody I actually know who some friends of mine grew up with, and he's a friend of mine in the real world from where I grew up. But I was just after the email part. The first Fed I was in actually had its own full board set up and all of that. So I'm not quite that old school, but I can put a fair amount of old and old school. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I started in 1994, I think.
Nice. Yeah, it's a little before me. I think I was 96 or 97 because I was in the latter stages of high school, I think, when I started, or the first year of college, something like that.
Yeah, same with me. It was high school, and I think any earlier than that, we'd have had to do it literally through actual USPS mail, because that's
yeah, right.
going back pretty far.
That's true.
I'm fairly positive at some point in time that was probably a thing.
I hope so.
Let's just be fair. Do you have any like set limit? I mean, I know we were talking about that just a second ago, and I don't know if I got a definitive answer. So, if you're in a championship match, what kind of role play limits do you have? Is it just like one per show, two per show? Like in XW, you've got in your Wednesday night show, you have the option of doing 3 unlimited words or 1 unlimited word, and on Savage on Saturdays, you have the option of doing 2 3,000 words or 1 3,000 word, depending on what you sign up for and what your workload that you want to take on for that particular program is. How is it over in your Fed?
For the World Championship, the Cooperative Championship, which is our version of the tag team, the Chaos, which is our version of the Hardcore Championship, and those are the 3 that don't have word limits placed on them, unless we say so as a part of a stipulation. We have the Cross Hemisphere Championship, which is like our Intercontinental Championship. Its lineage dates all the way back to LWF. That one has a word limit on it that can go anywhere from 1 to 3,000 usually, depending on what we're trying to do with it, basically. And then we have a new one called the Conquest Championship. It doesn't have a word limit on it, but it has to be defended every single show by whoever holds it. And if they successfully defend it 5 times in a row, they get an automatic world title shot somewhere down the line. And then once that happens, they vacate it.
Gotcha.
We don't generally have word limits except for the Cross Hemisphere Championship, and we're stipulated.
And even that one's kind of new, right? I think you only started doing the word limit on the Cross Hemisphere or Cross Semicircle title, as I call it.
Yep, I remember.
Within the last year or two, I think.
Yeah, the last couple of years. That's you're right. That's a new addition to that championship. And again, that was a way not only to make winning and holding that championship a little more challenging, because as far as lineage and importance to the World Championship go, the Cross Hemisphere Championship, if it's below it, is not below it by much in importance. It is one of our most sought after and respected championships because it has such a long lineage attached to it and has had so many legends of both LWF and UGWC as previous holders of it. So a lot of people have a great amount of respect for it, including me. Both of my characters have held it more than once. So it's a title that's very near and dear to me as a writer when I'm active.
Yeah, and Paige, I don't know if you heard it when he answered you, but it is, they just do 1 RP per show per person.
Yeah, 1 per show. Unless you have more than one character and want to role play with both of them or all of them, we try to avoid double booking people if we can, because we don't want to burn them out. but we do allow it where they request it if we think it's fitting what we're trying to accomplish storyline wise. We're very conscious of not burning people out.
Which is very possible. I mean, you got people that'll sign up with, 16 characters and show up with 2 of them, and then want to know why they lost the rest of their matches. What outside of UGWC, what? I don't even know how to word this correctly, so I'm gonna Theo, if I fuck it up, correct me. What other kind of, outreach are you looking for within your Fed, and what kind of, I don't know, whether it be on Twitter or social media or anything like that. What are you looking to gain, and where do you see the UGWC headed? We're coming up on the end of 2021, so let's just use 2022 as an example.
We have affiliates. We're part of. We're affiliated. Well, now it's with EWC, Union Battleground, and Level Up are our main 3 affiliates. We were affiliated with Carnage Wrestling before they closed down, and some of their talent came over to us, came back to us. We do have a Twitter handle.
Union Battlegrounds closed down too.
Okay, I was not aware of that. And I'm not the one that's usually left to pruning the website, and that's a very wise decision on the part of our owners. I'm not the person you want fiddling with things like that. It's not really my wheelhouse. I mean, I can set up and alter cards and things like that. But we don't want me doing website work. Anything too much more complicated than that.
It's pro boards. You guys have a pro board site. It's not that. It's not that intense.
No, thankfully, it's pretty easy to manage most of the time. But our most of the outreach we do in terms of talking to other feds is done by other fed heads than me. It's not really something that I take a huge part in personally. I mean, if I'm asked to, I would certainly do it. I would do anything I can to help the Fed grow and progress.
I think one thing that really works out for you, Ed, as far as bringing in fresh blood and things like that, because you don't do a lot of social media tweeting and that kind of stuff in general. And a lot of your bigger guys, I mean, there's definitely a presence for some of the talent, but not all of it.
Oh, yeah.
But
we have some who love Twitter and some of us who avoid it like a plague.
every year you guys do the Wrestle Stock event, and I think it's really a really cool idea that what you do is you open it up and you say, hey, anybody anywhere who wants to come in just for this event, just let us know. And like you can come in, no commitment. You don't have to stay longer than that event, and you can participate in it and win titles and things like that. I mean, we just last year, our own Anarchy champion, everybody's banana line sweetheart, Ruby, went over there for Wrestle Stock and won a championship and ended up having to stick around and defend it for a little while. So that's kind of cool. And that's not something we've done in XWF, but it's a really neat idea.
Wrestle Stock is usually a 3-day event. This year we expanded it. We made a little more work for ourselves. It was 5 days in story. That's kind of our, for want of a better comparison, the WrestleMania of our calendar. That is the outreach event, as you said, that we do. We take a great amount of pride in making that show. We take pride in making every show as good as it can be, because that's what our writers deserve. But Wrestle Stock is our baby, I guess is how you could phrase that. That is one of the, I would say, the big 3 for us on a yearly basis, pay-per-view wise, and we do get, as you said, that's where we do a lot of our outreach, and we do get, thankfully, people who come aboard, do the event, and then decide, I want to stick around a while. And some people have stayed a while, and some have come in and rotated out. And
I don't mean to step on your Groucho, but that's a piece of the beautiful thing about doing an event like that is when you open your doors up to you're essentially to the community. You're kind of wanting to get a handful. So let's say, and as an example, maybe 10 people come in for this show that were not on your actual roster. You've just created 5 matches, and let's say 3 of them stick around. It's a win, even if it's just for a cycle or 2. So I mean that's smart. It's a nice play.
Thank you. We've gotten a lot of great people over the years to join UGWC that way, to stick around for a while, and some have become, pretty important players or characters in the canon of the Fed, which is something we love to see. And I think, like you guys said, that one of the things that attracts people the most to doing that particular event, other than the fact that it is as big as it is, and, it's set up kind of like a carnival with a wrestling show in the middle of it, basically. So you have different areas for the show where people can go and they focus on certain characters or certain concepts, certain stables, however we decide to organize it from year to year. That adds a little more character to the event and makes it something more than just a straight up wrestling show for 5 days. There's usually some kind of insanity or chicanery going around throughout the event, even when the matches are going on. You'll have breakaways from the match to talk about something somewhere else on the grounds that's going on, be it a side event of some kind of circus-like event, or even just another match going on that requires people to move around the grounds. So it's kind of a whirling, chaotic event that generally gets really good reception from people. And we're always happy when they stick around afterward.
Let me ask you this then. You've probably been around for several of them. Do you have a wrestle stock that stands out in your mind as probably the best that you've seen?
That's actually a very good. Go ahead.
Oh, I said all the times he won.
Well, I mean, that helps, certainly. Everybody likes it when they win. That makes everything fun.
With as many as you've had, I mean, I think they're all really high quality. But yeah, I mean, if you have one that really sticks out to you, I'll have to look it up.
Having been involved in a lot of them, it's hard to pick just one that stands out for me. When my current character was introduced as a side character of my original character. So my main character, although he's on a hiatus right now, is Zane Scott. He was brought in as a side character to my original guy, Dirge. And then one of the guys who used to be in the Fed who had to leave, unfortunately, because he's a fantastic writer, he and I formed a team called Scott and Stein. His character is named Alex Stein. And he was probably on the short path. I would say he was on the short path to the World Championship, the way his momentum was building. We were in the main event of 2012, June 1st. Our guys competed for the cooperative championships and won them. So that's a pretty important day to me. And for my character, that association is still very important, even though for a large part he hasn't been around a lot. He did make a return last year in one of our events, and we fought. We went up against the current cooperative champions of the time and actually beat them, which was incredibly flattering because Blessed Vanity was and is a phenomenal team, and it's the two guys behind that team are two of the best writers I've ever seen in this game, and they're two of my favorite writers to both write against and work with when I have the chance to. So that was incredibly fun for me, and a nice honor to beat them, and kind of a one-off thing. But
that's Vane. And who's the Blessed half? Was that Hastings?
Travis Roberts.
Oh, T-Rob. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, he's good.
Yep. So that was a lot of fun getting to face those two, and I've teamed with both of them in stables before, too. I was in the Puppet Masters with both of them, which was kind of a short-lived stable we did, but it was fun while it lasted. And then Vane, or Chad, and I were in the Syndicate with a former character named Killian King, who has since left the game. Unfortunately, he's a phenomenal writer. And the, I guess we could call her the Black Queen of UGWC, Eden Morgan. She was the other component of the Syndicate, and we had a pretty big run for about a year, in 2015-ish, and that was also a great deal of fun.
Yeah, Eden's a lot of fun.
Great writer.
That girl and her partner, Ball, right? Gabriel Ball.
Yep, Gabriel Ball.
Speaking of the schedule on the output, like those guys every single week are cranking out like 7, 8, 9,000 word role plays. Really impressive.
And the handler of Gabriel Ball also has another character who's active named Sebastian Everett Bryce III, and he doesn't shortchange the writing for that character either. And I'm glad you mentioned him. He and I have known each other a very long time through this wonderful game of ours. He and another gentleman who has since left the game from England, a gentleman named Anthony. They founded a place called Pure Pain Wrestling that I joined years ago. And eventually I was invited into the ownership group of that Fed, which was a hell of a compliment, just like being asked to join management in UGWC was. I was very honored to be asked for that too. I didn't know that I deserved it, but it was very flattering to have that offer extended. But I have known the writer of Gabriel Ball for, God, it's probably almost 20 years now.
Wow.
And Pure Pain Wrestling, other than UGWC, Pure Pain Wrestling is number 2 for me of the feds that are always going to have a really, really important meaning for me as an e-fedder. And not just because I helped run it, but because I had just a tremendous amount of fun there, and I made friends that I've had for a very long time.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, I've been very lucky.
Isn't it weird how? And I'm not going to say it's. Well, I guess it kind of is weird. But like you say on our podcast all the time, we're all a bunch of nerds, playing the same game. And isn't it strange how friendships are not? I mean, you don't start out as friends, but over the course of years working with some of the same people, friendships develop.
Yep.
And then those friendships turn into brotherhoods, right? Like you become really close with some of these people, and you may not even meet them throughout your entire life. You may talk to them on the phone or on occasion, or through the apps or Discord or what have you. But you develop these lifelong connections based off of being a nerd.
Yes.
And we're all nerds doing the same thing, writing fictional writing.
Yep. I've had the pleasure of meeting Hastings, Roberts, and Alex Stein. I met them all at WrestleMania a few years ago.
I remember that. I remember you guys went to the show together, and I think Kenzie went to it too, didn't she?
Yes, that's right.
Rob.
That's right. We met him there too, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Which Mania was that?
New Orleans, right?
Nope, that was New York.
Okay.
Technically New Jersey.
I got shafted. I got the Atlanta WrestleMania, so I got the Miz and Cena on top. But I think it's really interesting because like I have met a good people that I talk to this day is based off of through Fedding and people that I associate with and I do consider friends. A lot of them come from this game, and it's really interesting how one little thing as writing a fictional character introduces you to so many people on a daily.
Definitely. The character Tempest, who you guys may know, the character is new in UGWC, but the handler's been around a long time, and I've known him back to his original character. Well, I think his second character, technically in e-fetting. He had a character named James Spider way back in the early 2000s, where I first met him in another Fed that is closed down long since, with my second character, Colin Zale, and that story went from guys who went from rivals to enemies to, in character, to lifelong friends, and he and I have been very good friends ever since. So that goes right into what you just said, that we've a lot of us have put together fairly, I would say, meaningful friendships out of something that most people would look at us like we have three heads if we talked about it with them.
Yeah.
Well, you can definitely see the deer in headlights look when you talk. You may be having my better half is definitely not a fedder. I could be having a conversation with somebody about it, and they look over at me like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Storyline, you don't get it. It's okay.
Yeah, my last
we got to book it properly. You got to know who to put over, and you got to work on the push. And like you guys are making this shit up, right? Like you can do whatever you want. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
We're talking about continuity. God damn it!
That would you mentioned Tempest there that you were talking about. That character is really, really cool.
Yes.
And the role plays that he's putting out recently that I've seen are awesome. Like really, really cool multimedia experiences with like embedded videos and music links and stuff like that. Really neat, really different. That's the same guy who does Rogan McLean. Right?
Yes. Actually, I was going to mention that if nobody else did. Yeah.
That son of a bitch. I want to just beat me.
Somebody's sour.
That was a close match there.
Well, I want to piggyback off of that because as you were kind of talking about that character, Vinny, what other kind of standout? I mean, I know that you've touched on several. What kind of standout characters do you have there that are maybe a little outside of the box? Like an example, I know that people may not be familiar with Chris Page. My character is more of that, I would say, more real life over, fictional stuff. Like I when I write more reality based versus being out there with time traveling and mentions and all that other shit. What kind of interesting characters have you seen over the years that you've been involved in your Fed that kind of just stand out? Like, okay, that's different, and it's different in a good way, whether it be on a darker side or even on a babyface side.
Well, one of the characters who's considered more interesting in the history of the Fed was a character I was not actually around for because I was actually on a bit of a hiatus at the time. There was a character named Tyvola who was a gigantic bearded maniac, essentially, and he was a pretty dominant world champion during 2015. Different people find different things memorable. One of my favorite characters, who is not active anymore, unfortunately, is Holden Orson. He's another really old character. He dates back to sometime in the mid 2000s, and he's a character that originally went by the name The Mainstreamer. And his character arc is that he was a part of the LGBTQ plus community back when it was a thing that people were more careful about, when it was not as commonly accepted in public as it is now. And it caused a bit of a break in his mind at one point, and he became a character named Holden Orson, who was this hipster character who dresses weirdly, has a very distinct ring style, and his favorite word, and he says it out loud, is scoff. So when he has a derisive thought about something that's usually expressed by just a sound, he'll actually say the word for it instead of making the noise. And
that's a good little quirk.
He's a really, really fun character. He owns his own hipster coffee shop, basically. He was actually a big rival of Durgis, so he actually came up with a gimmick he made fun of Zane for being robotic. So in one of his role plays, and this stuck, he wrote up a robot caricature of Zane called the Zane 9000. which was, I think, basically just like a guy in a cardboard box that had Zane's name and 9,000 written on it. And all he did was make fun of Zane for being robotic and boring, which was a very interesting way of going about that line of attack, because calling someone boring is terribly new to this game, but that was a fun way of going about it. I didn't think so at the time as much, but as time has gone on, I've grown to appreciate it. And I actually leaned into it eventually, which made it a lot easier.
I think I interacted with Holden a little bit. Holden was there right around the time that I left for a while. I think Holden was there.
Yep. Yeah, he was there briefly before his handler had to step away, but he's been our creative director character for the last year, and he's been very good in that role.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing right there I wanted to actually ask about, because I don't know how in character versus out of character that is. Paige, well, one thing they do like every year is a different kayfabe person in charge of the Fed, right? Mm-hmm. So they rotate it.
Yep.
Now, do you guys actually rotate it behind the scenes? Is it like, okay, hey, you take the reins this year, I'm just going to role play? Because I know, like right now, the champion is Donovan Hastings, who is always who I kind of considered as he's the Fed head, he's the guy. But is it something that you actually like rotate around and say, okay, you're in charge of this year?
So what we do, it's not per se in charge necessarily. They work with the management team. What we do at the beginning of the year is we reach out to somebody and we say, we'd like your character to be the creative director for the year. You'll work with us in coming up with ideas for some of the shows. If you have a particularly interesting idea for maybe a pay-per-view or a match type you'd like to see us try out, please tell us. And if it's something we feel we can do, we'll do it. And in character, the creative director is the person who interacts with the talent in the shows about booking and problems with other characters and everything that goes along with that. And it's a lot of fun. It's an interesting way of going about things in kayfabe, and that you get a different personality to the Fed to a certain degree every year by doing that.
Yeah.
And this year it's Holden.
Yeah, that's a neat thing. I always kind of wondered that because I knew you did that, but I wasn't sure how official it was and how the setup works. It kind of rolls into, I really want to ask this question, Paige, so just sort of let me get it. You touched on it earlier, the grading system, the judging system. I don't know how. I know you're in the war room in some capacity. I don't know how often you're in there. How does that go when you get the votes? Because I got to say, mathematically, I see the grades at the end of the show, and it'll say something like, Vinnie Lane's score was 7.48, and I cannot replicate getting that number mathematically. I say, okay, there's 15 people in the Fed. What scores are people submitting that you're getting totals of these hundredths place decimals? That's wild.
It's a blind vote. The scores go right to Donovan, and he averages and tallies all of them together, and scores that are outrageously low or outrageously high get tossed out of the equation as kind of statistical aberrations.
Okay.
So if you get a guy who's been mostly between like 6.5 and 7.5 for that particular event, and he's got someone who rated him at 2 and somebody who rated him at 10, the 2 and the 10 get thrown out.
That makes sense, because that gets rid of favoritism.
Right. And we have had events in the past where people have submitted role plays that were, decent. They didn't necessarily win, but they were good. Even on good ones, you get people that just don't care for that style or whatever was in it, and they'll give it a low grade. And I know it has happened at least a few times where someone has given someone like a 2 or a 3 as a grade, and that grade gets tossed. Because generally speaking, if you bother showing up and making an effort, you're at least worth an average grade on a scale of 1 to 10, which for me would be, for us, mathematically average would be 5, but I think for us average is a 6 because we have a lot of really good writers.
Yeah, no, I agree. I know in the times that I have voted, and I don't always do it. I mean, I just in this most recent run, I don't think I voted at all, maybe once. And I never have voted for matches that I took part in, even though that's not strictly against the rules, right? I mean, you guys, you can vote in your own match.
Yep, I don't either. I know a lot of other people don't.
Yeah, but I think the worst grade I ever gave anybody was a 5. And I think I always looked at it like, if I read it and it was okay, it's probably a 7. And if it's really good, it's an 8. And if it's kind of bad, then I gave it a 6. But that's kind of where I was coming from, where it's, I'm a whole numbers guy. I'm looking at 6s. Maybe I'll put a 6.5 in there. So when I see like those decimals, I'm like, man, what are these numbers? How are they getting there?
People create very complicated scoring rubrics where you get marked up or marked down for certain things you do or don't do.
Into the hundreds?
Well, I think I would just be a dick and score somebody like a 5.2367.
Right. Like I've wanted to do it. Like I'm gonna ruin this whole, like, you're gonna see a grade that goes out like 10 decimal places, and it's gonna be because of Vinnie Lane.
I can guarantee you Donovan has a way to work around that. I don't think there's much he hasn't seen at this point.
Let me ask you this, Groucho. Sure. We're gonna get ready to tie a bow on this in short order, and then I'm gonna come over to you, Theo. What you guys got going on the horizons here? What's next for the Fed?
So that's an interesting choice of words. That's their show called Horizons. So that's an interesting choice.
That is a show we do every year, actually. Our end of the year show is Horizons. We just did a pay-per-view, a brand new one we've never done before called And Then the Dragons Came. And we have for that one we had what's called the global stipulation of there had to be some kind of fantasy or sci-fi aspect to your role play. Everybody had to do it regardless of the match they were in. And almost everybody did. We had one person no-show and one person not do it. These things happen. At least the person who didn't do it participated. So that's something.
Was it Helder?
No, Helder actually Heldered.
Oh, yeah. They have a character over their page. You've probably seen him on Twitter. I interact with him all the time because he's really good at playing the grumpy old dwarf, because I think he just really is one. But Johnny Bone Crusher with the Taz pick base. And yeah, he actually signed up on the XWF boards, but never actually did anything. He's very active in the UG. It's like YouTube live stream rundowns of the shows and stuff. He's a lot of fun.
He's very entertaining. Don't know how he has the energy for it.
When you said midget, my mind went to Jim Cadis. I was about to say I didn't know Cadis was over there too. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Jim. I know you're listening. I love you, brother.
He's going to drive to your house. You know that, right? He's going to go to your house.
Yeah, he'll knock on the door. I'll have a joint ready for him. Yeah, let me come around to you so we can kind of wrap this up with Mr. Groucho. You got anything on your mind? Any last minute questions?
Not really. I mean, we covered a lot. A lot of the stuff that I was kind of hoping to hear, and then just a lot of really interesting things that just kind of came up organically. One of the things that I was gonna talk about with some of our other guests that we're gonna have on there is inter-fed matches. Like, have you had full-blown storylines with other feds? I mean, it seems like it may not be necessary because you talked about the wrestle stock thing where people come in from anywhere to wrestle. But that was kind of my thing, and that was a part of why I wanted to do this, was to try and find a way to bring feds together. And it doesn't have to necessarily be inter-fed stuff, but some kind of cross-promotional thing going on. Like, like you see with AEW right now. Like, one of the things that excites me about them is you have people from Impact Wrestling on there, or New Japan, or AAA, or whatever it is. Like, that's something that I would love to see XWF do more going forward, and it's certainly something we're going to work on, I think. But is that something that you have ever done in your Fed?
Sure. We worked when Carnage was open. We worked a few times with them, which was great, and both of their Fed heads eventually have joined us and were a part of us. Lucy was a part of us years ago. She's been a multiple-time world champion, cross-hemisphere champion, cooperative champion. She's a bit of an institution with us now. We were very happy when she came back. She took a brief hiatus from us while running Carnage, which I understand. So we were happy to get her back. Very good writer, very nice person. WrestleStock is the big event where that happens for us. But if it comes up and if the opportunity presents itself and it's a situation where we can make it happen, where it doesn't off balance the other Fed's schedule or ours, we will try to do things like that when we can. Like you guys said, outreach is good in the community, generally speaking, and it's nice to be able to draw people in. Our next big event's the Massive Melee on the 27th, September 27th. In terms of sign-up events, Battleground and WrestleStock tend to be the big two. We also have Outlast every year where we get some outside participation. And this year in April, we did Incursion, which was entirely with Carnage before, I believe it was Carnage, before they shut down. Or was it Level Up? Now I'm having a bit of a brain cramp, and I apologize for that. I'm still a little bit mentally worn out from helping write the last pay-per-view, unfortunately.
That was big. I think you actually wrote the co-op match. That was yours, right?
I wrote the Cross Hemisphere match, actually.
Oh, okay. I got it. Oh, my bad.
I have written co-op matches. They're not my favorite thing to write, but I have written them.
They're nobody's favorite thing. Nobody likes to write multi-man matches. Too much work.
I do, actually. I don't write matches ever, but when I do, those are the matches I actually like writing. Because I just think there's a lot more opportunity to like just do all kinds of crazy stuff. Because you have so many people in the matches. Like trio matches were my favorite to do. And that's part of why I don't write anymore, is because we don't do those, typically.
Well, there we go.
So, yeah.
Just gonna write that down. Let's take that note real quick.
Trios title coming back 2022.
I don't mind multi-person matches if they're like chaos matches. Those can be a lot of fun.
I gotta side with you on this one, Theo, because I kind of like doing tag matches. It doesn't matter. I mean, we just did that 12-man not too long ago. That was last week, which was a disaster. But like a tag match with 4 people, I feel like I get more out of it because there's more that I can do with 4 versus 2. Depending on what the stipulation is for a singles match, right? Like that's a whole nother ball game.
You can do a lot of stuff with it, but you know what the drawback for me is that I always want everybody to get all their shit in, and
yeah, I know that problem.
It's hard to fit it all in there. I don't know how you guys did it with that 12-man that you just referenced, because that's just way too many people. Like inevitably you're going to have somebody just sitting on the sidelines while somebody else looks like a star. It's almost unavoidable.
I agree. They can be the 12 people and the 10 people tags can be a little bit more than just the regular tag matches. I get that 100%. When is WrestleStock? When does that usually fall?
July.
That's
so this
July.
week, yeah, this year was the week of July 19th.
I'm gonna mark my calendar for next year.
That's our big mid-year blow-off, basically. And then we have the Massive Melee later in the year, and we end the year every year with Horizons, which is one of our biggest. It's a really big event for us to kind of cap off the year. And one thing we do after every pay-per-view is everybody gets a week off, from management to everybody on the roster. We give everybody a week to just kind of recover from everything. And we do something similar after Horizons every year. We take a period of time off after Horizons every year. We give everybody a break basically until the beginning of the next year sometime. Usually the second week of January-ish.
Yeah, you get like a Christmas break, basically. You get about a month off.
Recharge.
Yeah. Which is another unique thing. I haven't really seen other feds do that.
I think it's been generally well received in the past when we do it.
Yeah, everybody loves a break, for sure.
Well, guys, I mean, edit that. Pause. Gator, you're gonna need to pull that back. I just dropped the name.
Sorry, everyone knows my name at this point. It's whatever.
Okay, I just didn't know.
It's whatever.
All right. Well, that being said, we've been talking to you, Groucho. Do you have any questions for us before we wrap this up?
I would if I have to be in a different chat in a couple minutes. So I would if I had more time. Unfortunately,
no, you're fine, brother. We appreciate the time that you were able to give us, man. Because there's nothing better than getting the word out there. So before we sign off, what do you have the website information? You want to drop that? I'm pretty sure we'll drop it in the comments when we post the podcast. But any kind of social media information you want to give out? Now's time, brother. What you got?
Yeah. So our address is giwtwisted.proboards.com. That is the website for us. We do have a Twitter, which is @UGWC. If you go on our website and look down the left-hand side, you can see the Twitter scroll that we put up where certain tweets get promoted. If you read through that, it will give you a pretty good idea of the general character of our Fed in terms of how people comport themselves in their characters and how things develop. We have a very lively community. We do have a Discord, which we give out to people once they join the Fed. If you want to join, if somebody looks up and wants to join, excuse me, guys, sorry about that.
Goodness.
Go to the rules on our board. There will be a spot there for how to join. Read all the rules. Put your character up on the bio page with a sample roleplay for us to look at, unless we already know you. If you're a returning character, you don't really have to do that because we're already familiar with you. And we will book you. We'll at least give you a starter match, and then if you stick around, we will keep booking you. If you join, do one roleplay, and then we book you and you no-show us to the end of time, we're probably going to stop booking you at that point. We try to we like to give the active members as much time as they can get.
That's when you end up with the pictures of squashes, which is a favorite of mine.
Yes, that's something that actually weirdly didn't come up.
I stole that. I stole that and I've used it a couple of times.
Hey, feel free, man. We don't have a copyright on it. Yeah, that's one of our things that I didn't mention is whenever somebody no-shows, we put a literal picture of a squash in where their match goes in the sin cap.
Yeah.
I love it.
We try to have a sense of humor.
Well, brother, man, I appreciate you jumping in here and chatting with us about OGWC. If you're out there and you're listening, look them up and see what's going on.
Yeah, please feel free to stop by. We're always looking for folks, and we like it when new people stop by and stick around.
Ad, I got one last question for you before I free you forever. It's an easy question. It's an easy question, and I'm going to pass it on to the others. But take the cool kids: Roxy Cotton, Sarah Lackland, Angie Vaughn, Kenzie Gray. Best to worst, 1 to 4, go.
How does one qualify best or worst in this case?
Just as it is. We all know it. We all know who's number one. Go ahead.
Well, according to UGWC history, Angie is number 1. So
we're gonna have to edit this, Gator. We're gonna have to do some editing.
Angie's become an institution with us.
No, Angie's great. I'm just joking.
You guys have all been.
Sorry,
you guys have all had a lot of character.
If you just want to say like the names like one after another, I'll just edit them into the way that Vinny wants me to say them.
True, he does work for me, so you know.
It's true. It's true.
I see how it works.
That'll wrap us up here, man. I know you got to hop off, so thanks for taking the time. I know I probably said it like 3 or 4 times, but I can't say it enough. I think everybody on this call and everyone out there listening knows that we do this because we love it, not because we have to. We do it because we want to. So to get that free time, get some of your free time to kind of expand the horizons a little bit and bridges gaps between some of the feds out here is really cool to see.
I appreciate the invite, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hopefully we'll do a lot of working together in the future. I'm looking forward to it.
That would be cool.
Next coming in, representing OVW,
OCW.
CW.
Oh my God.
Oh my Christ.
You've done this so many fucking times.
I'm so stoned right now, so I apologize.
Rookie.
Do you want to say it a couple times before you actually start? OCW. OCW.
Oh, no, because I'm not gonna. I've already made your blue for real on this one. I'm not gonna continue to attack you.
Okay.
I will try this one more time. Theo coming in next, representing OCW, the one and only, the infamous. I only know him as by one name, and that is Will. Will, welcome, sir.
Appreciate it, Mr. Page. Thank you guys for having me.
You got to thank Theo on this. This is totally one of his concepts. He was the one that came up with all of it. He was like, "Ooh, can you do this?" I'm like, "Yes."
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Theo.
So,
Absolutely. I am happy to have you on and happy just to have this whole kind of concept happening. Of all the different people we've had on, there were some that I wanted to hear from for different reasons. For OCW, it's fortunate that we're doing this podcast, or at least this recording, now after your last pay-per-view, because that'll give us a chance to talk about some things that hopefully were a surprise for people and were certainly something that we have not done before, and we're hoping to build off of. But before we get to that, I just want to hear about your Fed and what you've been doing, what your past has been like, what you're hoping to do in the future. Hear about some of the different characters in your Fed, and just pretty much anything you want to tell us. The floor is yours, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah, it's a lot to get into, so I'll try to keep it, as simple and as brief as possible. But this thing started back in '99, pretty much like you guys. I don't think we've had the continuity that you guys have had, because it's mostly just been me running the show. And anybody who's run a Fed solo understands that you can only do it for so long before you lose your mind and have to just run away from the game for however long. But yeah, we started in, I want to say like November '99. And, just sort of been off and on, tried various formats and different sort of themes and whatnot, just to try to keep things from getting too ordinary, too mundane, too bland. We've done the monthly format, we've done the weekly format, we've done 2 shows a week, we've done 3 shows a week, we've done strictly pay-per-view matches, we've done 6-week pay-per-view periods, we've done 4-week so on and so forth, just to kind of spice things up and keep things going. Always trying to find a unique rhythm to each run. And this current run, which started back in, I want to say May, we went with the monthly format, which we had done previously in like 2015. And one thing I found to be an issue with it back in 2015 was that there wasn't enough going on to hold people's attention. See, like with you guys in XWF, your shows are bi-weekly, but you've got 3 of them. So you've constantly got a stream of results and role plays and action going on to keep people. Because if if there's one thing about most e-fedders, you've probably come to realize is they have very short attention spans. And when they join, they want to jump in right away. And if you don't hold their attention, they'll just go find another Fed and just do their thing over there. So, with this run, I was doing Pile Driver, and we were limiting the roster. And Pile Driver was like an in-studio show. And we were just building towards pay-per-views, but then, of course, because I'm a whore, after a while, you get all these people want to come in, you start expanding the roster, and yada, yada, long story short, here we are back to a normal weekly format with monthly pay-per-views. But, we've just finished our 3rd real pay-per-view. We had a kind of a joke pay-per-view to kick things off, storyline-wise, called Under the Lights. It was on Labor Day. And we've got our first return weekly show called Massacre coming up this Monday. We finished our last Pile Driver this past Wednesday. The roster right now probably sits at, I don't know, maybe like 20. I still haven't got that all organized. And yeah, it's going good. The interest and the popularity might be as high for this run as it's been in a long time, and mainly because of the marketing on Twitter. That has been a gold mine that I've sort of just accidentally fucked my way around into. So yeah, it's that's the short version of it. So
when you talk about the history dating back,
mm-hmm.
that you've kind of seen the transition. I'm right there with you. I started doing this like in 96, 95, 96, some shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now versus then, what do you see as some of like the biggest improvements from your side of the coin?
Okay.
In the game itself.
Yeah, definitely the graphics are way improved. When I look back on the graphics that we had in the late 90s, early 2000s that I thought were amazing, now I could create them. And if you have ever spent any amount of time talking to me, you know I think my graphics work is shit. So, but the graphics work is I mean, there's some people in this game that could put stuff together that you would see for like an AEW or WWE. There's some really talented artists out there. And I also think the writing as a whole, on par, is superior to what it used to be. You know, back in like the early days when I first got in, you'd have a fed of 20, 25 people, and there might be 4 or 5 that were decent writers. Everybody else, they were just cutting in-ring promos, a bunch of spelling errors, probably just a bunch of kids, just fucking around. And as time has gone on, everybody's sort of grown up, improved, smoothed out the rough edges, and we've got ourselves a community comprised mostly of pretty talented writers. But I will say, one thing I have noticed is I do think originality is not what it used to be. While the writing has improved, I think the originality that you had back in the late 90s and the early 2000s, all the weird and wild and off-the-wall characters, I think that has kind of decreased. And what you see now, what you've gained in terms of overall writing, you've sort of lost in character. You get a bunch of talented writers that all want to do the same thing. And that's one thing I like about XWF, and what I try to do in OCW is, when I first saw XWF, back when I joined as a wizard, I saw a ton of unique characters, which you don't find in mini feds these days. And so that's just to give you guys a plug. But yeah, the writing has improved, the graphics have improved, but I think the creativity and the originality has actually kind of gone down over the years.
I can see where you're coming from with that. Going to OCW, what kind of role play structure do you have going on over there?
Well, we focus heavily on storyline and character development in the role plays. That's not to say that you can't promo, because you have to. Like one thing I tell everybody is, when I read your role play, I have to come out of it knowing who you're facing, when it's taking place, what's at stake, and why you think you're going to win. Those 4 basic elements I have to know when I finish the role play. Outside of that, just get creative and have fun. Which is why I think we were touching on this before the show with the mix. There were so many people in the mix that just didn't get the promo concept, because for so many years I've stressed story. So they all felt like unique setting, original story, and then throw in some promo, and that's what kind of trips some people up. But we have 5 areas that I grade when I read a role play, and the first 4 areas are 5 points each, and then the last area is 4 points. You've got setting. The more original the setting, the more points you get, and that's from a 1 to 5 point scale. You've got CD and storyline, 1 to 5 points. The more interesting, the more creative, the more points you get there. Promo, 1 to 5 point scale. So, the better the promo. Like if you're Dolly Waters, you're probably getting close to a 5. If you're somebody else, not so high. And then grammar. I think grammar is important, and that's also on a 1 to 5 point scale. If you've got a shit ton of typos or grammatical errors, you're just not you're gonna get tagged in that category, because this is writing. And I think that you got to write like you kind of give a fuck how it comes off. And then the last category is 4 points, and that's for quantity. We've got a 2K cap. So for the first 500 words, 1 point. From 5 to 1,002, from 1,000 to 15,3, and then from 1,501 up or until you hit the cap, which is 2,000. That's 4 points. Because I don't like when you're role playing and you do 3,000 or 4,000, some guy does 1,000 and he beats you, and it just seems like that's so. I think there needs to be more of a governance on that. So that keeps like some guy from dropping 300 words beating a guy who does 2,000. It just sort of rewards the person for putting more effort into the project, if that makes sense.
It totally does. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I think you are. Mm-hmm. Old Thunder Knuckles and Chris Page are pretty tight. Mm-hmm. The little birdie that's Thunder Knuckles was mm-hmm. chatting with me about the tag team angle that was going on over there. when they picked up the OCW tag titles. So when I hear you talk about the story, and I'm all about that as a writer, I firmly believe that storytelling is a big principle of what we're doing on quote unquote TV, which would be your weekly or biweekly or monthly shows. So we were talking about the angle, and he's like, they want to put the tag titles on us, and we're going to drop them back on the BWO show. Like this was I don't even know if it had happened yet, or if it was even it was just been talked about. It's like, dude, that's awesome. To see that you are one of those kind of minds for what we do, to understand the concept of that's a hot act. We can work this out and make this happen. And to see that TK and Bourbon are those kind of guys that were like, fuck yeah, man, let's do it. There's not a whole lot of that going on, and I think that this was when you put the belts on them, it was a huge step for opening doors for real working relationships in feds where people won't get pissed off about a result. I think that shit's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. It's not something I'd ever done before because, throughout the years, I was sort of brought up with the philosophy that it's your Fed, and you got to protect your Fed, and you've got to, you've got to try to, keep everything in house. But as I've sort of evolved, because that's what it's all about, is evolving and learning and getting better, and as I've sort of evolved, I've sort of opened up and said, why, isolate yourselves when there's all this talent out there? And I see like a Thunder Knuckles, and I see a Robbie Bourbon, and I'm thinking, I want to work with these two guys. But they're XWF, so I can't say, hey, leave XWF, come to OCW. I would never, A, be that bold and brash, and B, they're not going to do it. I mean, the XWF's their home. So how do you work with these talented role players? Well, you work out a deal, and you work out a story, and everybody gets involved, and it gets people working with each other because, yes, these are feds, but they're really like, what is a fed? It's just sort of like a sub. It's sort of like just a sublet of an entire outlet where people go and they write, but there's nothing that they don't have to be there, and there's no walls, and there's no the walls and stuff that we erect to keep people from going other places are self-imposed, and they don't have to be. And all this talent that's out there can work together to create these different shows and these different stories, and everybody can work with each other and get involved. There shouldn't be barriers. And I know when I first ran the storyline, because I didn't tell anybody. I told TK and Bourbon and, of course, Deuce Jones, who was running Crazy and Bison, because I'm not going to just job them out without running it by them. And then the Incredible One, who's also involved. When that title change happened, I had a bunch of members come to me, and they're like, I can't believe you did that. You realize how that looks? And I'm thinking, well, how does it look? I mean, think about it. We've got these tag titles that are just sitting there. Nobody's got them. Nobody's holding them. They're just vacant. Why not put them on what I think is the best tag team in e-fetting, get them some exposure, and then whoever eventually beats them for it, just beat the best tag team wrestling to win them back. It's a great story. All it does is help us, and it helps TK and Bourbon, and it helps everybody involved. There's no downside to it. And I've been trying to do more of that since we've come back, affiliating with people, working storylines with people, as you saw, with Theo and everything else. And it's when you open it up, it more of an open world sort of thing. It just creates it just makes it more fun. So
let's talk about that for a second, because that was just on, conveniently your last pay-per-view was not too long ago. Let's talk about that, because Theo, you're here with us too. So to have that kind of involvement now, and as a reader, TK passed me the results, and as I'm cruising through, I've got my eyes on a couple of things. I see the Bastards retain tag titles. And I also see that Thad picked up the Savage Championship. Was that what it was? Was that what it was called?
Yes, that's what it's called.
But that wasn't the shocking moment. I see my Fed head on your television helping his nephew. I was legitimately shocked. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't see it coming. And I also saw that going back to what's something you had just said a second ago, the mixer that you did was a tag team tournament, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That tag team tournament was based off of creating attention for the tag team division that you had just put the belts on the Bastards. The putting the belts on the Bastards leads to this mixer. This mixer leads to 16 teams that
Yeah, 16
maybe or
teams.
maybe not, may or may not have teamed up together before. It's not the point. It's tag team wrestling. And I think it's safe to say, based off of hearing you, I know between myself and Theo, tag team role playing is an art. It's a lost art. It's putting shine on that. And the same pay per view, my boss in character shows up on your show to help his nephew. What drew that together?
Well, Theo, I believe, reached out to me. It was probably after the Bastards won the tag titles, because that seemed to kind of open up the floodgates, if you will, for all this sort of talk in terms of just, working with other promotions and whatnot. And Theo hit me up, and we bounced some ideas around, and he pitched the idea, and I thought, hey, because I was actually, because I'm sure you write matches, Chris, and when you've got a pay-per-view, and I had 8 matches to type, and I'm typing 6 of them. Raven typed 2 of them. Thank God. Thank God for James Raven. But when you're typing 6 matches, you're thinking up finishes, and you're trying to come up with unique finishes in each match that doesn't take away from the other, and it builds and it builds and it builds until the main event has the best finish of the entire show. And so I'm trying to think of a Thad Brim finish. Brim was the opponent for Thad in the Savage title match, and then Theo pitches this idea to me, and I'm like, oh, that's great. That's perfect. That keeps Brim looking strong. It plays into the entire story of the match that I'd already laid out, which was Brim just physically dominating Thad, because Brim's 400 pounds. This is a no DQ falls count anywhere match, so Brim's going to just lay on the guy and wear him out and beat the crap out of him. But Thad's resilience keeps him in there, keeps him from getting beat. And then Theo comes in, boom, belt shot with the Hart title, get the Hart title on OCW TV to get that some exposure, to continue the rivalry going. Then Thad hits the heat seeker, Brim goes down, 1, 2, 3. Thad wins, he got some fuckery, it creates more heat between the rivalry of the two feds, and Brim stays strong, and then you've got a nice, unique, surprising, shocking finish that takes away from nothing else that happened before or after. But it was Theo. Theo pitched it, so.
Yeah, what made you go there? It's great. It was a great finish to an already incredible show. So knowing that I write a shitload of matches. So knowing that you wrote 6 of those, hats off to you. Been there, done that. Don't like it. Right there with you. And second, you're correct. James Raven is a godsend. He's a great guy. So Theo, let me shoot over to you. When what brought that kind of idea to your mind?
So it evolved over time. So I think I've said before on various podcasts, or maybe just in different chats, that one of the things that we really want to do with Lane as the owner is kind of expose our Fed to different Feds, to the community, get out there. And I had worked with Will in GCWA when that was around for a little while. So we had been chatting previously before, had established a rapport. When he came to XWF, we chatted a bit more. And then when he left our Fed and went back to go run OCW, we talked a little bit, but he was mostly busy with that. And then out of the blue, TK messaged me one day. He's like, hey, just letting you know, here's what we did. Like, here's the storyline we're doing. We won their titles. We're going to job them back at the BWO show. And I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. Like, that's so cool that you guys are doing that. And I was excited that it was OCW, because I knew at the time, it wasn't a very big Fed, but I knew Will. So I knew that he was willing to work things out and make things awesome. And I thought it was great for us. It was great for OCW. Then things kind of changed, and instead of jobbing them back, it was, well, we're going to keep them, and we're going to defend them again at the next pay-per-view. And I'm like, that's interesting. So I hit up Will. I'm like, hey, TK told me about this. When is your next pay-per-view? He's like, it's the beginning of September. I'm like, timing-wise, that works out really well, because if we do something at that particular moment in time, XWF's big event of the year is the end of September. So we have 2 events in the month of September where we could really kind of ratchet things up and try and build out some kind of inter-Fed feud. And so people who have been on Twitter have probably seen Will and I kind of taking shots back and forth at each other, mostly in good fun. I would think most people probably don't think much more than just, OCW sticking up for themselves, Theo Pryce kind of sticking up for his people and just throwing some ribs out there. So when I proposed to Will, hey, how about Theo shows up at your pay-per-view? And originally it was to help the No Good Bastards ideally retain their titles, but it was completely up to however the judgment was done. We worked the angle around that. And that was the plan for a while. And then maybe like last week, I'm just like, Thad's a heel now. Thad is over there trying to win a title. I've already kind of thrown a couple jabs at OCW for having their tag titles, and now Betsy has one of their titles. Wouldn't it be interesting if Theo, with his connections to Thad in character-wise, showed up to help him win the title? And then, as judgment shook out, Thad was judged to win the match. We talked about a couple possibilities for like how we could write out the ending, and then Will kind of took it from there. And the ending he wrote, like everything else he wrote on that show, was just phenomenal. And as he explained, the ending works in so many different ways, but it doesn't detract from what happened before. It doesn't take away from what he set up for after the match for the next program. So that kind of, I think that moment, like you said, Chris, it was kind of shocking to see Theo show up there, and that was the point, right? It was shots fired. Here we go. Here's the start of what we hope can become a interfed storyline. And we don't have a whole lot planned out right now. Will and I are going to talk over the next couple of days about what the next step is and where we go from there. But we do want things to shake out, and we do want people involved. So if people in either fed have ideas, let us know. Let Will know if you're in OCW. Let me know if you're in XWF, and we will incorporate as much as we possibly can to make this something special. Because I think we're both fortunate, both feds, that we have people in charge. And I don't just mean me. I mean people like Vinny and the other GMs in the Fed who get the idea and the concept of inter-Fed things and want to work things out and understand the importance of story and how to do all that. And I think this is a really interesting moment for us, and I'm hoping that we can take advantage of it and really do something that a lot of people talk about and gets people interested, even if it's people that aren't in the Feds currently, but they see what's going on and like, wow, that's really awesome that they're able to do that. Because, I think one of the things Will and I had talked about, the hardest thing when it comes to inter-Fed matches is judging. How do you judge people from two different Feds that are facing each other if the Feds have different metrics? And I think what Will and I have discussed is that our metrics are actually pretty in line with each other. Like, Will actually judged a couple of matches from one of our shows, and then I judged a couple of matches from his shows, or one of his recent shows. And I think we were in agreement on the end result of, I want to say maybe all of them, or maybe all of them but one. And the one real difference between our Fed and his, and he kind of touched on it when he was talking about their judging, is they put more emphasis on story, whereas we put more emphasis on trash talk. So how do we work around that difference to make sure that we can judge things fairly for both parties? And I don't know that we've necessarily come up with a concrete answer for how we're going to do that. I think we have ideas. And I've talked to Vinny, and he threw some ideas out there. So it's something that we're going to evolve on and figure out, but it's definitely something we're going to do. There will be more that comes, as a result of what happened at their pay-per-view. What exactly that looks like, I don't know, but it's going to happen for sure.
100%.
I just think it's great to see the inner workings and the inner workings of the inner promotional aspect of it, because you said something, Theo, that again, light bulb went off. Relentless is right around the corner for the XWF, and what better way for shots to be fired back, and to have something go down if that was the case. Let me come back. Excuse me. Let's come back around to you, Will.
Okay.
With everything that you've gotten going on right now, in OCW, you said it's probably come back at a really hot time, right? Because timing is everything, and when you hit the ground running and you blow up as quick as you have, it's a beautiful thing to see. It's a lot of work, which sucks, but it's a beautiful thing to see. and to see the popularity of your last pay-per-view. Where are you going next? What's the next big thing on your horizons that you got working towards?
Well, a long time ago, I don't know, 10 years. And I've been doing this for, like I said, for 20 years. And, when I was young, I used to come back and I used to say, all right, we're going to go forever. We're never going to shut down. And then that just never works out because shit happens and whatnot. So a while back, I just sort of learned that, when you bring this thing back, your mentality is one show at a time, the next show, and then the next show. And then whatever you have advertised, you write that and then you move from there, And so, I'd like for this thing to go for however long. And I am working towards maybe making that happen by bringing in a staff. Like I've got Raven helping me out. And I've got other people, but you got to be careful with the staff because you get the wrong people in there and then all kinds of fuckery happens. And then you get like people, you know what I mean? It gets political and that just kills the Fed. But anyway, as far as actual events, on October the 10th is our next pay-per-view, and that's called Masters of Macabre. And what we're doing with that is it's going to take place at Whitechapel in London, England, the epicenter of the Ripper murders. And it's going to be a Halloween spooky kind of themed show. And I'm going to have the participants in the pay-per-view role play under a dream state is what I'm calling it, where they put themselves in a certain time period or a certain film or a certain story that's dark, horror related, and they role play their 3 role plays immersed in that sort of dream state. Just sort of add to the theme and try something different. And so we're going to be building towards that here, actually starting this Monday. And then after that, we'll just see what happens. I know in December we usually do, y'all have War Games, we do something called Death March, which is pretty much the same concept. So that would be next. But, just build towards the next show, the next pay-per-view, take it 1 week at a time and just try to keep the momentum going.
Well, there's definitely a lot of forward motion. I see bigger things happening for you.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking earlier about how big social media, especially mainly Twitter, has been for your Fed.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think you'd be without it? Like back in my day when I ran my Fed, I didn't really do a lot of promoting. It was word of mouth, and we ran for like 11 years. Some shit. But I can only imagine now, like how if Twitter wasn't there, do you think that you would have gotten the pop that you've gotten? Like and I know it's a weird question to ask, but I'm me personally, I go back to the Stone Age of email feds. That's where I began, and seeing where everything has come full circle to now is like night and day to me, and it still baffles my mind to think that 20 fucking years ago, 23, 24 years ago, you didn't have half of this. Without Twitter in the mix, you think that you would be here where you're at now? Because the Fed's blown up. It's on fire.
I don't think so. I'd like to think that I've been a Fed head through just about every era of e-Feding, and back in the late '90s and the early 2000s, I remember you'd have some people rage quit and whatnot, and you'd have your roster go from 25 to 13 overnight, and you're like, oh crap, I need more people. So you jump into a Yahoo chat room and you just start spamming the shit out of people in a wrestling chat, and next thing you know, you beat the roster back up to 30, right? So I
just need 10 of you.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so that's how I used to recruit back then, and then it became email, where I would I used to get a lot of heat for this too. I was actually on for a little bit. I think Rough Cut had me on their blacklist, but I'd go to Feds, and if they just had their people's emails just out there, I would just email them and say, "Hey, come to my Fed," and that's how I used to. I'd send maybe 500 emails out in one night, and I'd wake up and I'd have 10 applications, and I'd have 5 emails with people threatening to sue me because I emailed them illegally or something. I don't know, but
it's a matter of public record, you fucker.
Exactly, that's what I'd say. Like, well, tell your owner to take your email off the fucking public forum, Then it was Rough Cut. You know, you'd go to Rough Cut and you'd advertise your Fed there, and you get some people through that. But no, I think the only thing I can sort of compare the growth and the rate of the growth that we've experienced this run would be those Yahoo chat rooms when there was just people everywhere in real time seeing your advertising. And I think that's actually a pretty good comparison, because in Twitter, it is almost like a chat room. You're in there and you're posting stuff, and people see it immediately and they can react to it. And so when I'm doing the shows, and I think this is a big part of the popularity, when I'm doing the pay-per-views especially, I think I'm going to do Massacre this way too. It just means I got to get this shit done, a day ahead of time rather than procrastinate and get it done at 2 a.m. the day it's due. But like when you post it in real time and you get on Twitter and you say, the show is beginning, first segment, oh, look who's here. People are seeing that and they're reacting to it and they're clicking on it and they're reading it. So you're getting more readers onto your product and you're promoting everything that's going on. And so everybody involved in your Fed is becoming sort of publicized to the entire community. And I mean, what eFedder doesn't like to be, touted and publicized and promoted? They love that shit. That's eFedders all have egos, most of them anyway. And so it's happening in real time, and it's instant connection to people, and they can contact you immediately. And you get messages after each show. I get a couple messages. Hey, so you guys taking the applications? What's going on over there? A lot of interest. So I think if it weren't for Twitter, let's say Rough Cut was still a thing, and that was the primary way of advertising as it was 3 or 4 years ago, we'd probably have the 8 we started out with, plus maybe 3 or 4 more, maybe 1 or 2 off Rough Cut, and maybe 2 or 3 that I managed to guilt trip into coming back. And that'd probably be about it, A good solid core, but not near the size of the popularity that it is now. Twitter has absolutely given it a boost that I haven't seen or experienced in running a Fed since, probably those early mid-2000 days when I'd get in the chat rooms.
Man, you have been around the block, brother.
Oh, I know. Tell me about it.
I mean, I think that what you're doing and how you're running things and how you just sound like you got your shit together. It's good to know that there are other owners out there. Like we were talking with the other Feds earlier, that everyone that we've spoken to seems to be very level-headed and seems to all kind of want the same thing. And that's the evolving of the community in general. So it's just incredible to see. Theo, man, do you got anything else for him?
I don't know that I do. I mean, it was, he kind of gave us pretty much everything I was looking for in terms of some of the backstory and some more info about what they're doing now. Because again, one of the things I want people who are listening to this podcast to do, and I hope it goes out to the community, not just XWF members, is I want people to hear what the other Feds are doing. And if they see something or hear something that they think sounds awesome, whether it's OCW or Fight or UGWC, I think I said that right, but probably not. I want them joining those Feds, and I want to hear about it, and I want to grow the community, and I want the XWF to be part of that process. So I think Will offered a lot of great information. Hopefully they'll start accepting applications soon, so people can join their Fed. But I mean, as Will said, he's still putting a staff together, and we don't want OCW to disappear. We don't want Will to burn out, but he needs that staff first, because otherwise.
Well, in the event of
it just doesn't work. It just doesn't. And we see it. We have a pretty good sized staff in XWF.
Once the staff gets together, hit us with the web address and how can people reach you if they feel to on Twitter or any other social media?
On Twitter, I think it's I don't even know my own Twitter hashtag or on Twitter. Let me go over here. I think it's twitter.com/OCWHQ1, I believe. And the website is onlinechambionshipwrestling.com. And then you can just get to the boards from there. It's a pretty simple website to navigate. I'm regardless, whatever people may have you believe about my technological prowess, I'm sort of a mental midget when it comes to that stuff. So I just have the bare necessities. Click links and web pages. That's about it. So, onlinechambionshipwrestling.com. That's where we're at. us on Twitter at OCWHQ1. And yeah, I'm around. I mean, I'm not hard to find. You'll see me on Twitter all day, just posting and reposting and all kinds of stuff. So.
Good to hear. And with that, we'll be right back after this commercial break. Theo, man, the next guest on this adventure that we've taken across multi federations, something that's kind of new on the map, or at least to me. You went out and got us a multimedia conglomerate in the Twittersphere, whatever the fuck. Shep from Splat, welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you.
How's life treating you, man?
Treating me okay, A-okay. Winter's coming.
Where I'm at in Florida, I'm praying for it.
Yeah, I'm in Montana. We're going to get it.
Well, chat me up, man. Talk to me about Splat. What's going on here? I've heard a little bit about it. I'm not gonna pretend like I know a whole lot. I'm not, as they say, tech savvy. I don't get on Twitter and that other jazz, but I have heard of Splat. Mainly, I remember the first time I'd heard about it was back in like January, and Thad Duke was doing something with it. So what is it all about?
So, Splat started out as kind of an archive, actually, for all my when I was doing e-fetting in the 90s. I had all this stuff like just piled up in my email, just cards and from different feds, and then the fed I ran, just all packed up in my email. And I thought, well, let's do something with this. And so I started putting it into this website, and then I'm thinking, let's try some other stuff too, instead of just having old wrestling cards in there that nobody probably will ever read. Let's do something with this. And so we brought, I think Global Combat Championship. They came on. And then we started doing actually scripted programming. And well, it's been in December, it'll be 2 years now. So we've been doing scripted programming. We did some DC comic series and then some original stuff after that. And then we just take e-fetters and throw them into roles, and they role play that they're actors now, and everyone seems to be having a good time with it. And now we have a multi-fed championship that we kind of tour around different federations now too. So, and
that's right. We had one of those in the XWF not too long ago. Our beloved Reby. Is that right, Theo?
That is, as far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a title defense on Friday actually coming up too. So
which fed is that going to be in?
Overpowered Wrestling over there. Yep, and I don't think they actually have a Twitter. They just have a guy who tweets it. Christian Kincaid, he runs that thing over there. So this will be our second time defending in his territory, so to speak. So
such an interesting concept, actually. Basically assign wrestlers as an actor role, and You've got this multiverse championship that travels around from Fed to Fed to Fed to Fed to Fed. That's incredible. I never would have thought that in our this game that something like that would have come around back when in the 90s and early 2000s when I was in the games when I first started out. To see that kind of progression is incredible.
Yeah, I started doing collaborative stuff like early in the 90s. We did a couple of shows with a couple of other feds back then, and so that's kind of like that's where my roots are. Is you work with everybody else and try to bring that community together, and that's kind of what Splat is all about. Is you take all these assorted individuals who might not otherwise interact with each other, and now they've got a reason to interact with each other. Either they're acting in the same series or movie together, or here come the champions coming, and these two people who might never have fought before for any other reason. Now there's a match between two people who have never fought before, and that's kind of my whole thing with Splat is just to try to do something to bring the whole community together for some sort of purpose.
Theo, that's kind of why we put this whole podcast together, like in a nutshell. Well, let's go back to the multiverse championship for a second.
Sure.
How do you determine where you're gonna set up your scheduled defenses at? Like, just reach out and.
To be honest, a lot of times people come to me, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to come? Do you want to come here? Do you want to come defend over here?" If there's a particular individual I would like to see get a title shot, then I might approach the Fed and say, "Hey, I have this idea," and so far it's been working out really well. I haven't had any really complaints about people losing or whatever. So everyone kind of considers it a plus, I guess, when we come in and bring our champion in and have a good time with it. So
yeah, we come over to you, man.
Yeah, I mean, a lot, like you said, what they're doing is a big part of what we want to do, but obviously, with a different model. Certainly what Splat does is extremely unique and not something we would even attempt to try and replicate in terms of just all the media and stuff that they create. But the general idea of reaching out to different people that you wouldn't necessarily reach out to, different audience, different fedders, trying to bring people together to try and do cross-promotional stuff as much as possible. That is a big reason why we set this podcast up. I mean, it may be the single reason why. It was just to try and reach out to a different audience than what we're accustomed to, and get out there and let people know about XWF. And then for our audience to know about Splat and Fight and UGWC and OCW and Denzel and all the amazing work that he and his team do. Like, that's what this is. And so I was really excited to hear about Splat because I learned about it through Vinnie. It was something that he was involved with or just knew about somehow. And so it's been interesting to just kind of watch from the sidelines. And if you go on their website, and again, we will provide links to all of these different partners that we've worked with in the description of this video. So I would recommend everyone go and check them out. But if you go to the Splat website, like, there is so much there, so many different things. It's really, really incredible. And it's incredible. It's probably the best word I can use for it, because there's just so much, and it's all so many different things. It's mind blowing when you see it. And I think anybody who visits it for the first time, they'll walk away thinking, wow, like, I had no idea this was out there, but now I'm so glad that I know.
it's really cool because we have I want to say, are we at 9? We have 9, I think, beds that are currently running that quote unquote stream through Splat right now. So it's actually been kind of fun to kind of do that. And we, anytime a new show comes out for one of our streaming partners, we shoot out the link and we put it on the eFetter and we put it on our Discord, and we try to get the word out. Hey, here's a card just dropped. Go check it out. Because we want people to, go check out the folks that are supporting us and a part of our program, programming family, I guess you might call them. So it's actually been really fun.
Expand on that a little bit more. Like, so is Splat like it's more than just eFeds, right? Like, what else do you have going on outside of?
So, well, we have our eFed archives, and there's cards from as early as 1995, and all the way up to just a few years ago. We got a library from a Fed that closed down a few years ago, and we just kind of throw up those cards so that people can, they're at least they're there in case somebody wants to see them. And then of course we do have our eFeds. We have Global Combat, which is a kind of an MMA Fed, and then we have all the other Feds that are with us here. I'm going to pull it up right now so I don't forget, because I'll forget somebody. Let's see. Overpowered, Five Boroughs, Uprising, Mile High Wrestling, Revolution 1, and One Wrestle Movement are all part of our streaming. And we've got room. I try not to overlap people too much. So we've got room for a few more Feds if anybody else is looking for, that kind of exposure. We're happy to do it. But and then on top of that, we have our weekly series. We have one new scripted show a week that goes up, and we're about to finish up. This week is the season finale for a show called Ghost Fighter Boone, which has Connor James Cross and Atara Themis. They star in that one. And then the week after that, we have a series starting called The Wife, which has Betsy and Thad starring in the two lead roles for that one. And then, yep. So then annually we have some sort of tournament. Like last year we had the Unlucky 16 tournament, which was kind of a coin toss driven tournament, and Vinnie was part of that one. So that may have been where he mentioned it before, because he was in that tournament. But then next year in May we have another one coming up. It's going to be like be like a football field sized cage match. So it's supposed to be it should be pretty fun. Hopefully people will like it. So, but we do.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say we have so much. We try to have so much stuff going on that it's just it can be hard to keep up sometimes. But we've done a pretty good job so far. And then, even people outside of myself contribute. Addie Gold has written some stuff for Splat, that sort of thing. So we are definitely.
That was one of my next questions. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we're definitely open if anybody else wants to write some stuff. We are definitely open to that kind of stuff. So
one of my next questions was actually how many people are working with you on this?
It's mostly just me at the moment, and then obviously the Fed heads, they do their own stuff for their Feds, and then again I had Addie Gold did a series and a movie for and a stand-up comedy special, and and then we also had a Batman thing that was written by somebody else too. Daniel Dream wrote the Batman series that we had like early. I think it was early last year. He wrote that. But other than that, it's pretty much me, just pretty much doing the thing. So.
Where do you see Splat going?
Well,
let's say in the next year and a half, 2 years.
next year we got a tournament coming up. We'll start pushing that here probably in about February. That is going to be in May, and then we've got more series coming out. Where I had to take a brief pause for a few months while I moved from Georgia to Montana. So I'm playing catch up with a lot of stuff that I had planned to be done here pretty soon with this season, but I had to extend it out to the end of the year because I had to shut down for about 3 months. So we got a season 2022 kind of already laid out, and then we'll see where we go after that. I kind of plan out the year, and then we'll just kind of play it by ear and see how things go and that sort of thing. And of course, we still have the champion going around defending the title, and so I gotta make those preparations as well. So, and we've got title defenses laid out probably through February at this point. So,
badass. And how can the fine listeners out there find you if they haven't heard of Splat? Where
we are at We Are Splat on Twitter and at We Are Splat on the eFetter, and our website is wearesplat.com. So everything's kind of We Are Splat. So typically you can kind of find us. If you go We Are Splat somewhere, we're probably there.
Yeah, you got anything?
Silence.
Yeah, you there?
Yeah, sorry. Did you say something? My mic cut out apparently. Great.
I said, do you have anything?
Yeah, so if somebody like I had several different ideas kind of running through my head as you were talking about the different things that you do. Say somebody wanted to do a program like a scripted show, somebody from our Fed or whatever. How would they do that? Would they just contact you? Like, is there a process? Do they need to provide like a draft script kind of thing, or
So usually what I tell them is
they just kind of conversation that you have with them to kind of feel people out and see what.
Let me know what you have in mind. If I think the idea fits what we're doing, then I'll say write it up. And like I've had issues before where people say, "Hey, I want to do this," so I'll start advertising, and then they kind of bail. So then I'm kind of left with things. So now for outside sources, I have them make sure everything's written up first, so I can proofread it and edit it and do all that stuff that needs to get done to it, and then I'll start pushing it as a program on Splat, and then we'll start airing it and we'll cast it and whatever else needs to get done to it. So, yep, all you gotta do is reach out with an idea and then be willing to write it up. And we've got a couple of things too. I mean, you don't have to write a whole series. Actually, we've got a couple of sports related series that are kind of like biographical. If you want to do a biographical thing about your eFed character, we have that. We also have like if you have a character who's got like this big match coming up or some big event, you can write up kind of a what leads up to that event, and maybe after that event how it went for you and that kind of stuff. It's more like a sports documentary kind of a thing. We do have those too. We don't need to do a whole series or anything like that, and it can be eFed related too. It's like we've got room for pretty much anything. If you've got an idea, we'll find a way to put it on here.
Okay, is there? I had a thought, but then it kind of just escaped my mind. It's a shame because it was actually a good one too, or so I thought. But yeah, it'll come to me at some point. Are there certain types of things that you're looking for or are you really just open to kind of hearing anything and then just kind of going from there? Or is there like certain things you're trying to get more of and just kind of waiting for somebody to propose it, or
I try to do more original crafted ideas. We did a whole lot of DC comic stuff in the first season, and so I'm trying to get away from that kind of stuff. I'd rather see something original, original idea, and or even an original take on an idea. It can be something new, something people haven't seen before, that sort of thing.
And what does the season consist of? Is it like one episode a month or a week, or how do you do it?
We're doing one episode a week.
Okay.
So
many
we
weeks
try.
could be in
Yeah,
the
there's
season?
there's so many people in this fed that I feel like would jump at that kind of opportunity.
Yeah, we try to do, and that's just my stuff. My stuff is one episode a week, and then like we might take a couple of weeks off when our live event comes, just so that we can focus on that, and then we'll go back to the scripted stuff after the tournament's over. But otherwise, if somebody else has stuff they want to put up, it'll just be additional content to what we're already doing, and we're always open to that. So.
It sounds like to me, and bear in mind I'm old school. This is it's a great concept. Great concept the whole way around.
Everyone has really got everyone has your detractors, but for the most part, everyone is very positive. And I haven't had any quote unquote quarrels about who's working with who or any of that kind of stuff. I've never had any of that kind of stuff, which is considering how I want to say this, how emotional, or I don't know what the right word is, but like e-fetters are very creative, but they also have that tendency to be very, very outspoken about their characters and defend what am I talking about? Defensive about their characters a little bit. So, but I haven't had any issues at all with anybody regarding anything that I've done with their characters. So it's actually been really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it would be really hard to do as much and as many different things as you do without being able to listen to people and understand what they're trying to accomplish and how they want things done. And kind of reaching with them and an understanding with them. So that it doesn't shock me to hear that, to be honest with you.
So it's actually been a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's definitely a lot of fun too. So I enjoy getting everyone together to kind of do some stuff, and everyone's doing a really good job. When their show comes out, they plug it, or they might post a picture of their character on some talk show, and we're hyping up the show and that sort of thing. It's really kind of cool what people have been doing.
I think it's a home run, dude. It sounds like you're just it has the attention of the masses, if you will. And it's really interesting to see. We were chatting with one of the other feds. I made a comment about how how critical. Not say critical, but excuse me, how interesting Twitter has made the game. Right, like back in the day. We didn't have this. We didn't have this avenue to go down, and we didn't have the avenue to plug. And it's good to see. It's good to see that we've come this far. The internet has allowed us to take this kind of step where you can do this amazing stuff on the side and provide entertainment on all different levels. The fact that you do more than just e-fed stuff is, to me, it makes it even that much better.
It's funny. You could go back. If you go back to the '90s, we had the Usenet, but after that kind of went away, now we got Twitter. So it's definitely different for sure.
Yeah, man. I don't know where else to go from here.
Yeah, I think that tied a bow on everything, to use a Chris Page-ism.
Yeah,
sounds good to me.
Tie a bow on it. There you go, Theo. Just like that. Listen, Shep, man, I appreciate you coming on and enlightening me a little bit about what's going on with Splat and what you have going on. It sounds like if everything aligns and more people that you can get involved, it really sounds like the sky's the limit with that concept, and don't see where you would be stopped.
Like I said, if anybody is looking to get involved, just hit me up. I'm pretty much everywhere, so I'm not that hard to find. Hit me up, we'll get you squared away.
Thanks for taking some time tonight, man. We appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me on there. Appreciate it.
No
Thank
problem.
you. We really appreciate it.
All right. Y'all have a good night.
You too, brother.
You too.
Theo, as you said earlier, this will tie a bow on this episode. It's. I want to say thank you for putting this one together. It was arguably the longest show in the history of podcasts.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, and I don't have to edit it. Thank God. Appreciate that, Gator. We love you. But I'm really glad that we were able to do this. I think it's an ambitious episode. It's certainly a very different episode from what we've ever done, and I'm excited for people to hear it. I'm excited to hear what people think of it, and I'm really excited just to kind of see what happens because of it. What kind of ideas people come up with, be it for cross-promotional stuff, or people start looking at some other feds and joining those, or people from those feds come and try XWF, or they, somebody puts together a program for Splat, or, get involved with Denzel stuff. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunities that I think can come from this, and I'm excited to see what happens. I really appreciate, Will from OCW and Shep and Denzel, Groucho, Vhodka, and Vin, all of them, just for coming on the podcast, you, Paige, for hosting it and being professional as always, Gator, for all the work you're going to do to edit this. It was a really big deal for me, I thought, and I'm hoping that the results kind of bear out the effort that went into it.
I have no doubts that it will. We've had fun talking to a lot of different people about a lot of different feds, a lot of different concepts, which only really goes to show how far the game has come over the years. And we've really and truly, e-fedding is going to go as far as any one person wants to take it. So with that being said, usually we throw something over to Vinnie. However, you're here, so why don't you go ahead and take us out?
I would be happy to do that. Thank you, everyone. As always, from now until the end of time, go fuck yourself, Centurion.
Thanks for listening to the XWF Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the XWF YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at XWF1999. And don't forget to check us out at XWF99.com. Be sure to join us next time where the action never slows down.